Chapter 609. Elder Heavenly Flame and the seventh elder did not speak, but the two of them stood to the left and right. A powerful aura as vast as the sea surged out like a tide, instantly drowning the entire holy palace. In this sort of situation, Qin Yu's aura immediately became clear. He was like a boulder in a raging sea, unmoving no matter how much it struck him. Time slowly passed. The deathly silence caused the second elder's expression to become increasingly gloomy. He suddenly said, "It seems that His Highness the Holy Sun is indeed very dissatisfied with us. Since His Highness is unwilling to personally summon us, we can only take the initiative to greet him." He landed in front of the main entrance of the Holy Palace, straightened his robe, and strode into the palace along the straight path. Elder Tianhuo was expressionless. "This old man is really curious as to how your Highness Holy Sun is going to deal with us next." His tone was cold. The seventh elder said calmly, "We'll find out soon enough." Even in such a situation, he was still so arrogant. It was simply unimaginable. Did he really think that he could do whatever he wanted just because he was a holy son? The more arrogant he was now, the more embarrassing it would be in the future. The demon envoy paled and anger filled his eyes. Just what was going on with Qin Yu? Couldn't he see that this was a trap? Sensing the chilliness exuded by the members of the council of elders around him, his heart grew heavier. "Qin Yu, just what is going on with you? Wake up quickly. If you continue to be so obstinate, no one will be able to protect you." In the straight and deep tunnel, with the second elder in the lead, his footsteps were exceptionally clear. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but the frequency of his footsteps gradually became the same as Elder Tianhua and the seventh elder. The footsteps of the three overlapped, the deep sound of their footsteps reverberating in the tunnel, gradually emitting an aura that could crush everything. Like a mighty wave, it swept over in an open and above-board manner, rushing straight into the depths of the holy palace along the corridor. The scene before his eyes suddenly became clear. The elders walked out one after another and stood on the main hall's plaza. That oppressive and surging oppressive aura, not only did it not dissipate, it became even more terrifying. Black clouds were weaving in the sky above their heads. All the members of the elders' council raised their heads and looked at the main hall at the end of the square. With their cultivation and eyesight, they could clearly see the figure sitting on the throne. Up until now, he had remained calm and unmoving, as if he had not noticed anything that was happening in the outside world. This time, the good-natured elderly could not help but frown, dissatisfaction flashing in his eyes. Even though they were angry, they were still elders of Holy Emperor Palace. They held great power in their hands and had extremely respected statuses. Qin Yu's current behavior was extremely rude. To be more serious, it could even be said that he did not care about any of them at all. The demon envoy couldn't bear to watch any longer. He suddenly shouted, "Your Highness, Holy Sun, I have come with the elders. Your Highness, please welcome us." Even if they walked out of the hall now, they would still be able to save face for both sides, giving them a chance to salvage the situation. But the demon envoy was disappointed. This was because the figure in the hall didn't respond at all. He could even clearly see the faint expression on Qin Yu's face. Was this kid crazy? The second elder laughed heartily. "What a great holy son, Your Highness! How awe-inspiring! This old man has finally witnessed it today." With a flick of his sleeve, he said, "Since we've already come this far, there's no reason for us to go any further. Skyfire, Lily, follow this old man into the palace." "All right." Elder Heavenfire and the seventh elder growled. Now, the three of them were truly enraged. Moreover, they had already laid the groundwork, so they naturally wouldn't mistreat themselves any further. With a single step, the three elders entered the square. With a single step, they had already entered the main hall. The second elder cupped his hands together and lightly said, "Your Highness, Holy Sun, I am willing to take responsibility for sealing off the Holy Emperor Palace and punishing your subordinates. I ask that your highness decide what to do." As they left the hall, the light suddenly dimmed. With Elder Li and the demon envoy in the lead, the other 8 elders appeared. It seemed as if they couldn't withstand the light. The terrifying aura they exuded was squeezed out of the air and expelled. Qin Yu looked up and swept his eyes over everyone. He saw the 2nd elder, Skyfire, and the 7th elder's hidden anger and coldness, the demon envoy's restlessness, and the cold indifference of Elder Li and the others. He gently tapped his fingers on the back of his chair. His short and slow syllables were particularly clear in the hall. No matter what everyone thought, they couldn't help but feel a bit strange at this moment. How could he remain so calm at this time? Was it really because he was ignorant and fearless? Qin Yu's voice finally sounded out. "In the past, because of an accident, I was trapped in the endless sea. I barely managed to escape with my life on the line. When I returned to the demonic path's small world, I discovered that my palace had been closed and all the cultivators under my command had been expelled. The female official of the past was blind and lying on her bed, waiting for death." He paused for a moment and then continued to say, "I was angry." Even though they were angry, as they listened to Qin Yu's calm words, they couldn't help but feel a bit uncomfortable. It was normal for people to leave and the tea to cool. If Qin Yu had really died, then there wouldn't be a problem with their actions. But now that he had returned alive, it seemed particularly wrong. The 2nd elder's eyes flashed with ridicule. Did he want to play the sad card to salvage the situation? How naive! He cupped his hands together and broke the awkward atmosphere in the hall. "Your Highness Saint Sun's words are correct. We were thoughtless and caused your Highness and your subordinates to suffer injustice. The reason we came here today is to ask your Highness to punish us." Elder Skyfire had no expression. "I participated in all of this. I was the one who first proposed sealing up the Holy Palace. If there is a punishment, then I should be the one to bear the heaviest responsibility." The 7th elder lightly said, "I share the same attitude as Elder Skyfire. If your Highness Saint Sun wishes to punish us, then please count me in." The 3 of them had clearly expressed their attitude. They stood upright, as if they were ready to accept any punishment. "Weren't you angry? Very good. Then vent it out. Come at me." The demon envoy said in a low voice, "Your Highness, the 3 elders made this decision because they learned that you had perished. This was an unintentional mistake, so I ask that your Highness be magnanimous and let this matter pass." Qin Yu shook his head. He said in a soft voice, "A mistake is a mistake. Just because it was an unintentional mistake, we can't push away all responsibility. Otherwise, where would justice be and where would the rules be?" He looked at Skyfire. "Does the 5th elder mean that I should take the initiative to shoulder the greatest responsibility?" Hearing this question, the strange feeling in everyone's hearts became even heavier. There was even a feeling of absurdity in their hearts. Was he aware of the current situation? Could it be that he really wanted to punish the 3 elders? Even if he was the Saint's son, he didn't have the qualifications to do so. Elder Skyfire arched an eyebrow. "I should shoulder the majority of the responsibility to begin with. Your Highness Saint Sun does not need to have any scruples. Just punish me severely." The 2nd elder and 7th elder didn't speak, but their eyes turned even colder. In the main hall, the atmosphere was so heavy that it seemed it would freeze. Qin Yu let out a deep breath. His lips curved up in a smile. "It seems that the 3 elders are certain that with my current status, I cannot punish you." No one spoke. There was only a look of pity in their eyes. Since they already knew this, why did they allow the situation to reach this step? Whether it was their foolish pride or their overly inflated hearts, of course, none of that mattered. Elder Li's eyes drooped. His calm eyes were deep and serene. He could clearly see how dangerous the current situation was. Since the 2nd elder, Skyfire, and 7th elder had taken action, they stood on the opposite side of Qin Yu. They were all old and experienced characters. They definitely wouldn't leave behind any hidden dangers for themselves. In other words, these three people would never allow Qin to continue carrying the title of the Saint Sun. Looking at the current situation, this wasn't difficult at all. Once Qin lost his status as the Saint Sun, he wouldn't be able to contend with the crushing suppression of the three elders. Xiao Chen was already on the brink of death, but he did not notice it at all. To be honest, he was indeed a little disappointed with the Holy Sun's performance today. The demon envoy looked at the calm Qin sitting in the throne of the main hall. The corners of his lips curved up in a smile, exuding a formidable self-confidence. Did he have some other hidden card? As soon as this thought appeared, the demon envoy's eyes brightened. He had disappeared from the sea of purgatory for dozens of years. Could it be that Qin demon body had made a breakthrough during this period of time? He hurriedly focused his senses. Although the aura of the demon body was clear, it didn't give him any sense of oppression. He frowned and bitterly smiled. Indeed, worrying about personal gains and losses had caused him to start deceiving himself. Even if he smoothly obtained Water Demon's blood essence, it would be impossible for him to complete the transformation of the Saint Step demon body in a few short decades. Moreover, if Qin had really made a breakthrough, the Holy Palace would have automatically recognized him as its master. The demon envoy's eyes fell on Qin face. A complex light flashed in his eyes. If his current self-confidence was still based on his status as the Saint Sun, then he was doomed to be the greatest idiot of all. Could it be that he hadn't listened to the warnings he had given him in the past? Or did he think he was just trying to scare him? The demon envoy looked at Qin and then at the second elder and the others in the hall whose auras were gradually becoming cold and harsh. His lips tightened in determination. No matter what angle he considered it from, he wouldn't allow Qin to lose his status as the Saint Sun. If things got out of hand in the end, then he would shed all pretense of cordiality. In the end, he was the demon envoy of the Holy Emperor Palace, and he controlled half of the true demon guards. If these people didn't have any scruples, then they would rely on their own ability. Qin eyes paused on the demon envoy. He could feel the coldness and decisiveness in his eyes, and the discontent in his heart dissipated a bit. The demon envoy didn't know that his current performance had changed Qin's decision. Otherwise, even if he maintained his current status, he would never be able to touch upon any real power again. Those that should jump out had already jumped out. Qin decided to end this drama. He slowly stood up. As he moved, one of the seals that the little blue lamp placed on his body began to dissipate. Bang! A powerful aura broke out from his body. It was like a volcano that erupted without warning. A wild strength instantly flooded every inch of the hall. 11 demonic path elders, 11 calamity immortal realm super powerhouses. But now, their auras were instantly suppressed. It was as if they had no strength to resist it at all. This was because this wasn't pure strength, but represented a completely different level. In East Sun City, all the cultivators felt their hearts race. Their eyes widened in panic and alarm as they looked up. They discovered that the skies above their heads had turned dark, as if a great bird had flown over and spread out its long wings, blocking out the sun. In the next moment, the skies were like a mirror, directly breaking apart from behind. An incomparably massive palace arrived with an unrivaled and arrogant attitude. The silent and boundless array formations within it awoke from their slumber. A dazzling brilliance erupted from within. At this moment, it even covered up the 9 blazing suns above its head. A majestic, noble, and boundless aura spread out from this palace, causing the minds of countless people to tremble. Awe and submission gushed out from the depths of their souls, causing them to unconsciously fall to their knees. Qin Yu's black robes tumbled about him. His eyes shined like stars, revealing absolute strength and confidence. The 11 elders in the hall stiffened like iron. Their eyes widened, their lips violently shivered, and their faces paled. This aura, it couldn't be wrong, it couldn't be wrong. Saint Sovereign, from today onwards, the demonic path Imperial Palace had a new master. As these thoughts raced through their minds, the descending Holy Palace in the skies above East Sun City began to emit a deep rumbling that spread through the entire demonic path small world at an astonishing speed. It didn't sound like thunder, but more like some great beast that had awoken from its slumber. It reared its head back and roared, excitedly announcing to the world that there was now another transcendent existence that could use the world as a chessboard. Elder Li's pupils shrank, but in the next moment he vanished from sight. He fell to the ground and cried out in excitement, "Saint Sovereign lineage, Elder Li Tian-Chun greets Your Highness, the Saint Sovereign." The demon envoy was the second to respond. He looked at Qin with disbelief. He suddenly realized something, and his heart shook. No wonder Qin actions had been so unwise. It turned out that he had controlled everything from the very start. As he thought of his own performance, his face flushed red. He followed closely behind Li Tian-Chun and bowed. "Saint Sovereign, lineage demon, envoy Anyang greets the Saint Sovereign." The 6 elders behind the 2 of them felt as if their minds were exploding. It was like a massive army was galloping towards them. They lost the ability to think and fell to their knees in a daze. At almost the same time, their eyes fell on the 2nd elder, Skyfire, and 7th elder. The same thought appeared in their minds. These 3 people were finished, the Saint Sun and the Saint Sovereign. Although there was a difference of a single word, it represented completely different statuses and identities. No matter how they thought about it, how Qin had been able to break into the Saint realm in just a few dozen years, the facts were laid out in front of them. The Saint Sovereign was the master of the Holy Emperor Palace and the nominally highest authority within the demonic path. Even when facing elder-level existences, he still had the power to decide their life and death. This wasn't just empty power on the surface, but true power. As the master of the Holy Emperor Palace, in the demonic path's Holy Land small world, he was a nearly invincible existence. He could even kill tribulation transcenders. The 2nd elder, Skyfire, and 7th elder all had their faces drained of blood. They couldn't help but reveal shock, anger, and panic in their eyes. How could this be? They had indeed received tremendous benefits from Qin, and that was why they had tried to deal with him. But they never imagined that they would lose their lives in the process. If there was a medicine for regret in this world, then no matter what price they had to pay, the 3 of them would have bought it without hesitation. But the truth was that there wasn't. Skyfire met Qin gaze, and his palm trembled. At this moment, he wished he could personally strangle that old bastard, Mu Yinli, to death. Qin cold voice echoed out, "The 2nd, 5th, and 7th elders have committed treason against their superiors and conspired against the law. Today they will be stripped of their positions and imprisoned in the fiend-suppressing prison." He looked down from above, his gaze like a god. "5th elder, since you are willing to shoulder the majority of the responsibility, then I will punish you by sending you to the 3rd level of the fiend-suppressing prison. You will not be released without pardon." The 5th elder's eyes widened. His throat rolled up and down as he made gurgling sounds. Cold sweat instantly soaked through his robes. The entire hall fell deathly silent. Even the demon attendant couldn't help but widen his eyes, revealing a look of shock. This punishment was far too heavy, especially the 5th elder. It had to be known that the 3rd level of the fiend-suppressing prison was a place comparable to purgatory. In other words, Qin single order had caused 3 elder-level characters to fall to the ground. The fox mourned the death of the rabbit. The other elders in the hall all looked at each other in shock. Qin remained expressionless. "Who has an opinion?" The chill in his words penetrated deep into their hearts. The other elders stiffened. They didn't doubt that Qin had the courage to continue. Since he had already sent 3 elders to the fiend-suppressing prison, what difference did it make if he added 1 or 2 more? Everyone lowered their heads. The 2nd elder's lips trembled. He fell to his knees. I am willing to accept His Majesty the Saint Sovereign's punishment." The seventh elder followed suit and fell to his knees. Only the fifth elder's complexion was gloomy and his eyes were hard to read. The third level of the fiend-suppressing prison, no release without pardon. When these two conditions were placed together, it was nearly a dead end. He was the fifth elder of the Holy Emperor Palace, a great figure that stood above trillions of people. How could he accept such a tragic fate? Skyfire clenched his teeth as he looked at Chinyu, but at this time his body stiffened. This was because he could clearly see in Chinyu's eyes a hint of eagerness and anticipation. It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over Skyfire's head, causing him to subconsciously shiver. Chinyu was waiting for him to resist. He wanted to kill him. Skyfire regained his composure. Chinyu had already obtained the recognition of the Holy Emperor Palace as its master. In this small world of the demonic path, he was an invincible existence. If Chinyu wanted to kill him, it would be easy. And most importantly, Chinyu really did intend to kill him. No, I cannot die like this. I have to live, for better or worse. I am still a calamity immortal. If I clench my teeth and endure, there will come a day when I can escape. Putong! Elder Skyfire fell to his knees. "Thank you, Your Majesty Saint Sovereign, for not killing me." Since he knew that Chinyu wanted to kill him, he had to shut him up ahead of time. Otherwise, once he entered the fiend-suppressing prison, who knew when he would be harmed? He glanced over and saw Chinyu's expressionless face. In his eyes, there was an indescribable sense of disappointment. This old fellow immediately rejoiced in his heart. Luckily, he was quick-witted and hadn't fallen for his tricks. Chinyu relaxed a little. Although he didn't fear killing people, if he were to kill an elder after ascending to the throne of the Holy Emperor, it would inevitably trigger a series of reactions that would cause trouble in the transition of power. Even if it could be quelled, it would take time. And what he didn't want the most right now was to wait. After establishing himself as the Holy Emperor and obtaining the promise of the Tao Arena Master, Chinyu was impatient to go straight to the immortal sect. This could be considered the best possible result. With a flick of his sleeves, space twisted and a black hole appeared. A chilling and terrifying aura spread out from within. The second elder, Skyfire, and the seventh elder were filled with bitterness. They crawled up from the ground and walked into the black hole, their backs bleak and desolate. Shwa, the black hole vanished. This represented that these three elder-level characters had withdrawn from the limitless stage. Chapter 610. Clustered Cloud City, Mu Family. Everywhere, people were thrown into chaos. Panic filled everyone's faces. News from East Sun City confirmed where the Holy Emperor Palace had gone after suddenly disappearing. It also announced that all of the Mu family's plans had failed. Chinyu had become the new Holy Sovereign. As the Mu family cultivators thought of this, endless fear rose up from the depths of their souls. In the main hall, the high-level figures of the Mu family were deathly pale. No one spoke. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. They were well aware of what the Mu family had done when Chinyu entered the demonic path. But it was precisely because they knew that they felt even more despair. This was a grudge that could not be resolved. Once Chinyu sorted out the power in his hands, the Mu family would fall into the abyss, beyond redemption. Who are you trying to show with such a sad face? You bunch of useless things. A cold shout rang out. Mu Yunli walked in, his complexion gloomy. Everyone hurriedly stood up and bowed. As they listened to the old ancestor's energetic voice, a trace of anticipation appeared in their despairing eyes. Humph! Mu Yunli stood still and coldly snorted. So what if Chinyu succeeds as the Holy Sovereign? Our Mu family also once had a sacred emperor. He lifted his hand. Light flashed in his palm and a scarlet crystal appeared. There were beautiful characters flowing within it. This is an alchemy manual left behind by my race's Holy Sovereign. In order to prevent you all from acting recklessly, I have never taken it out. The Mu family members were overjoyed. An alchemy book that forgives all great sins. So, my Mu family actually had such a life-saving treasure. This is great. With this alchemy book in hand, not even the new Holy Sovereign can destroy my Mu family. The oppressive and despairing atmosphere in the hall instantly dissipated. The Mu family old ancestor put away the alchemy book. Now do what you should do. If news of you panicking spreads out, it will only provoke ridicule. He paused for a moment and then said, Our Mu family will not fall. Without staying any longer, Mu Yunli returned to the underground palace where he lived all year round. But his words of comfort were clearly effective. The Mu family quickly calmed down, and many people smiled once more. With the alchemy book in hand, even the great crimes of rebellion could be pardoned. Even if the new Holy Sovereign was angry, he wouldn't be able to target the Mu family. The decline of the clan was inevitable, but to them, being able to survive was already the best outcome. The Holy Emperor Palace's actions were faster than the Mu family had imagined. On the second day after Mu Yunli appeared, the true demon guards descended upon Cloud Cluster City and sealed off the Mu family's residence. A large number of silent true demon guards were covered in black armor. They were like thick cumulus clouds, emitting a heart-palpitating pressure. After a brief moment of panic, the doors to the Mu family opened. The Mu family cultivator, led by Mu Xianglin, walked out with a calm expression. He bowed and said, Juniors greet Lord Demon Envoy. I wonder what has caused you to personally come out and seal off my Mu family? The Demon Envoy was expressionless. The Mu family is involved in the crime of treason. His Majesty the Saint Emperor has ordered that everyone in the Mu family is to be captured. If anyone resists, they will be killed without question. Mu Xianglin's face turned pale. He raised his head and said solemnly, Lord Demon Envoy, my Mu family has the pardon pill edict left behind by the previous sacred emperor. Even if we commit a grave crime, we can still be exempted from punishment. Qin Yu is now a saint emperor, so it would be easy for him to lay out evidence against the Mu family. Moreover, the Mu family was not clean to begin with. The demon envoy frowned. Pardon pill edict? He suddenly felt a headache coming on. There was no need to say how much Qin Yu loathed the Mu family. But if there really was a pardon pill edict left behind by the previous sacred emperor, then things would become troublesome. Qin Yu had concealed the fact that he had broken through to the demon body saint level, drawing out all unstable factors and suppressing them in one fell swoop, paving the road to power. But this was also a test for the demon envoy. Although he hadn't done anything wrong, Qin Yu had clearly expressed his dissatisfaction with his inaction these past years. The demon envoy was well aware that he had to use his actions to regain Qin Yu's trust. Suppressing the Mu family was the first task Qin Yu had given him after he ascended to the throne. If he couldn't even accomplish this, then he would lose all face. The demon envoy took a deep breath and coldly said, Words are no proof. Bring out the pardon pill edict. Mu Xianglin calmly said, Lord Demon Envoy, please wait a moment. This junior will immediately send for the old ancestor. He turned and gave several orders. A Mu family cultivator quickly left. But after some time, Mu Yunli didn't appear. Mu Xianglin revealed a puzzled expression. After discovering that the true demon guards had blocked off the entrance, he had already sent for them. Could it be that the old ancestor was cultivating? A bit of unease rose in his heart. Mu Xianglin sent someone to urge the Mu family cultivator that had just left came back with a deathly pale face. Mu Xianglin stiffened. He asked what happened. Why hasn't the old ancestor come out yet? Old ancestor, not in the underground palace. As the Mu family cultivator spoke, his body shook like a sieve. Mu Xianglin's eyes widened. Impossible. He turned and pushed through the crowd, rushing towards the underground palace. The demon envoy's eyes flashed, but he didn't stop him. He waved his hand and led a massive number of true demon guards into the Mu family like a black tide. Mu Xianlin crazily rushed into the underground palace. But what he saw left his entire body icy cold. The underground palace was empty, and he couldn't see Mu Yunli at all. The old ancestor had escaped. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, his legs buckled and he slumped to the ground. Mu Xianlin suddenly understood. The old ancestor had appeared with the pardon pill edict yesterday in order to appease the Mu family cultivators and have them act as open targets, so that he could buy time to escape. Without accident, he should have already escaped from the demonic path's Holy Land's small world. Mu Yunli, you old bastard! Mu Xianlin's hoarse roar reverberated in the underground palace. From a distortion in space, a black-robed figure walked out. He looked up and pulled down his hood, revealing an old face. This was Mu Yunli. This old monster had an indifferent expression, an icy coldness deep in his eyes. He thought that perhaps the Mu family had already been suppressed by now. When news arrived from East Sun City that 3 elder-level characters had been exiled to the fiend-suppressing prison, Mu Yunli knew that Qin Yu would never let the Mu family off. So from the very start, he had decided to escape. His goal of appeasing the Mu family cultivators was just as Mu Xianlin thought. In order to live to this day, he had paid an incalculable price. How could he die so easily like this? Taking a deep breath, Mu Yunli muttered, "Qin Yu, it is all thanks to you that my reputation has been ruined. There will be a day when I will pay you back in double. The Mu family does indeed have a pardon pill edict, but it is in my hands. I am very curious as to what you will do next. Just take it as a small repayment from this old man in advance." Pulling up his black robe, Mu Yunli stepped forwards and vanished into space. When Mu Xianlin was dragged out from the underground palace like a dead dog, the spirits of everyone in the Mu family collapsed. The true demon guard used the shortest time possible to throw everyone in the Mu family into a cage. But the demon envoy's face was gloomy. Mu Yunli had escaped. Without him, the significance of destroying the Mu family would be reduced by at least half. Qin, you wouldn't be satisfied with that. And now, there was another thorny matter. Through a quick interrogation, the demon envoy obtained the confessions of the high-level figures of the Mu family. They had actually seen the pardon pill edict in Mu Yunli's hands. The pardon pill edict couldn't be faked. It contained the aura of a saint sovereign. In other words, the Mu family did have a trump card to avoid death. But now, Mu Yunli had vanished with the pardon pill edict. How to deal with the Mu family had become a difficult problem. At this time, a true demon guard ran over. He bowed, his face pale. "Lord Demon Envoy, we discovered a chamber in Mu Yunli's underground palace. There is a corpse inside. It would be best if you personally took a look." The demon envoy's heart skipped a beat. He said in a low voice, "Lead the way." Soon, he walked up the stone steps of the chamber and arrived in front of a corpse that was twisted beyond recognition. It was clear that this corpse had died after suffering an excruciating pain. A foul stench filled the air, but the demon envoy couldn't care less about it. After recognizing the identity of this corpse, he clenched his teeth and cursed. That old bastard! He suddenly understood why Mu Yunli had fled with the pardon pill edict and not left it in the Mu family. So he had been waiting here. The demon envoy took a deep breath. Immediately tidy up the corpse. Remember to make a proper arrangement. He didn't stay any longer. With a heavy heart, he left Cloud Cluster City. By the time Qin Yu saw the corpse, 2 hours had passed. He had been tidied up and changed into a new set of clothes. But he couldn't conceal the twisted expression on his face. It was Shang Yuntai. Qin Yu was silent. In a trance, he recalled the time when he was in the endless sea, when he was weak and struggling to survive. The reason he had helped him was because Qin Yu had experienced the same experience as Shang Yuntai. But now he had died. After experiencing countless tribulations and struggling to survive on the brink of death, He had thought that Shan Yuntai would be reborn, but in the end, he hadn't been able to escape his tragic fate. Like this, he had died, all of his efforts had been for nothing. In truth, Qin Yu and Shan Yuntai didn't have much of a friendship, but as he looked at his corpse, for some unknown reason, an intense restlessness rose up in his heart. Feeling the increasingly terrifying aura coming from Qin Yu's body, the demon envoy's complexion changed. He hesitated for a moment and then said, "Your Majesty Saint Sovereign, the Mu family does indeed possess the Pardon Pill Edict. I ask that you carefully consider how to deal with it." Qin Yu remained expressionless. Within the third generation of the Mu family, regardless of their status, all men and women will be executed. Children, women, and children will be banished, and their cultivations will be crippled. They will never be able to cultivate for the rest of their lives. The demon envoy's eyes widened. "Your Majesty, the Mu family's inheritance was deeply rooted in the demonic path. Through generations of marriages, their influence could be said to be deeply entangled. Even if it only involved 3 generations, the scope of its involvement was still terrifying. It would inevitably set off a massive earthquake within the demonic path." Qin Yu's voice was calm. "Didn't Mu Yunli kill Shan Yuntai in order to enrage me? I will do as he wishes." He lifted a hand, his tone icy cold. "There is no need to speak of this matter again. Go." The demon envoy took a deep breath. He bowed and drew back. He had already fulfilled his duty to advise Qin Yu. Since His Majesty Saint Sovereign insisted on doing this, he could only comply. To take the heads of the entire Mu family and create trouble for the Saint Sovereign. That old dog Mu Yunli, his thoughts were truly vicious. Qin Yu was the only one left in the chamber. He looked at Shan Yuntai's body lying on the icy cold stone platform and slowly let out a breath. "The entire Mu family will be buried with you. If anyone in the underworld knows of this, I hope you can rest in peace." With a flick of his sleeves, space collapsed inch by inch, submerging Shan Yuntai's corpse before it vanished from sight. Qin Yu turned and strode away, a look of determination in his eyes. He had also defied the heavens and changed his fate. He had bitterly struggled all the way forward, but he absolutely wouldn't end up like Shan Yuntai. He absolutely wouldn't. In 2 days, all 3 generations of the Mu family's adult men and women had fallen into pools of their own blood. A bloody light soared into the skies, nearly dyeing the skies red. Killing 1 person was simple. Killing 10 wasn't difficult. But what about 100, 1,000, or even 10,000? With a thought, tens of thousands of heads fell to the ground. For a time, everyone in the demonic path's holy land was panic-stricken. Towards the newly ascended Saint Sovereign, endless fear rose up in their hearts. Luckily, after the Mu family was destroyed, the Saint Sovereign seemed to have satisfied his addiction to drinking blood and didn't do anything horrifying again. On the surface, the storm gradually subsided, but in the dark, the change of power still brought with it a storm of blood. Of course, all of this occurred in secret. The demonic path was about to welcome the Saint Sovereign's grand celebration. Ever since the previous Saint Sovereign perished, the demonic path had finally welcomed a peak character that could stir up the world, so they naturally had to celebrate. On the day of the celebration, the Dark Knight Demon Region's Divine Throne and Yama King Blue Skies arrived together. The 3 giants of the demonic path gathered together. As countless demonic path cultivators saw this, tears of excitement flowed down their cheeks. During the celebration, the 3 giants of the demonic path only made an appearance at the beginning. Afterwards, they entered the Saint Sovereign Palace and began their first private meeting. As for what the 3 sides discussed, no one knew except for them. But on the second day after the celebration, a piece of news spread out from the demonic path. Like a meteor crashing into the sea, it set off endless waves throughout the entire land of divinity and demons. 10 days later, the demonic path Saint Sovereign would personally pay a visit to the immortal sect. Countless cultivators were left dumbfounded. As they heard this news, Their first reaction was that this was complete nonsense. The immortal path and demonic path appeared peaceful on the surface, but the truth was that they were mortal enemies that had fought for countless years. They both wished for the other side to die. The demon, sovereign, immortal, worshipping sect? Please, this wasn't some brainless plot. What kind of joke was this? But the subsequent reactions caused everyone in the world to quickly determine that this news wasn't false at all. The demonic path had already publicly announced the demonic path Saint Sovereign's decision to the world. They were only waiting for the immortal sect's response. All cultivators that knew of this paled. Fear swelled up from the depths of their hearts. Could it be that a great war was about to break out between the immortal path and demonic path? Because of the clash between these two titans, the entire land of divinity and demons fell into an oppressive atmosphere. On the second day, the immortal sect announced to the world that they would welcome the arrival of the Saint Sovereign. After this news spread out, there was another violent uproar. But the truth was that this was normal. The demonic path had already made their move, so the immortal sect naturally wouldn't retreat. Moreover, this was the demon sovereign's immortal worshipping sect. The immortal sect had nothing to fear. All that remained was 10 days from now. When the demon sovereign arrived at the immortal sect, all of the world's attention would be focused on him. Immortal sect, 9 Heaven, Mirror Moon Palace. Xin Yuanin was sealed within a giant block of profound ice. Her eyes were closed, and the aura within her violently fluctuated. Suddenly, her eyes flashed open. Nebulas seemed to circle in the depths of her pupils as countless fragmented images flashed through them. Bang! The profound ice seemed unable to withstand the pressure. Some strength descended, and it directly shattered into pieces. Xin Yuanin stuffily coughed. The nebulas in her eyes rapidly dissipated, and blood quietly slid down the corners of her lips. Xin Yuanin. Ningling. Xin Yuanin. Ningling. Chapter 611. The darkness of night was like water covering everything. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. On a desolate hill, a wild wolf was enjoying the flesh and blood it had just hunted. It tore at the meat in large mouthfuls, its eyes vigilantly sweeping around from time to time. Suddenly, the wild wolf that was eating froze. Then, its head tumbled to the ground. But there wasn't a single drop of blood flowing out from its corpse. Even the torn pieces of flesh and blood withered away, losing all vitality. A hunchbacked figure appeared beside the wild wolf's corpse. He seemed to be swallowing something and then let out a comfortable breath. You even ate such weak blood vitality. Old hunchback, it looks like your condition isn't too good. If you can't hold on and are about to die, you might as well give your cultivation to me so it doesn't go to waste. A hoarse voice echoed out from afar. Another, smoke-like figure floated over. The hunchbacked figure grinned. Old bastard, even if you die, I can still live well. A third voice sounded out. Old hunchback is right. He seemed to be a man of few words. As he approached, he spat out the second half of his words. None of us can outlive him. The smoke-like figure sneered. But, as if he lacked confidence, he didn't say anything else. Don't argue. If you want to be free, remember to leave all the benefits for me. Living is tiring. A hatchet appeared in the air and cut open a door. A thin figure walked out. His wrinkles nearly covered his face, and his small eyes were filled with fatigue. Hee woodcutter, you're actually still alive. I heard that solitary Westgate personally chased you down in the past. You really are lucky. The old hunchback said with a surprised expression. Woodcutter, Fu, stuffily coughed. That absolutely wasn't something he wanted to recall. Just a little bit more, and he would have been killed. That's enough. Everyone has gathered here today because there is an important matter. The air fell silent. Old Bastard's voice became increasingly hoarse, like two rusty iron plates rubbing against each other. Woodcutter, everyone understands your meaning, but this matter, a single mistake, and we're all finished. Woodcutter, Fu coldly sneered. Even if this didn't happen, how long could you last? The ceremony has been prepared for many years, and we're just lacking a qualified sacrifice. This is our best chance. If we miss it, there won't be a next time. The silent figure said, I agree. Old Hunchback raised his head. That's strange. Mute, you're the least talkative and the most cautious, yet you agreed so quickly. Mute said, how rare. Woodchopper, Fu grinned, the wrinkles on his face rippling. Everyone's lives aren't easy, so let's not waste time here. Let's vote. For votes in favor, you only have one chance. We bet our lives on it. We have to be careful. Go all out. 4 voices sounded out one after another, and soon after they became weak, like the buzzing of mosquitoes in summer, and became inaudible. Great Yan Empire, G City. The chill from the northern frontier and the humid monsoon winds from the sea gathered in the sky above the ancient imperial capital, forming thick clouds. The pitter-patter of raindrops pierced through the clouds and fell, bringing with it a bone-piercing chill, making the gloomy rainy day even more depressing. All 9 city gates of G City were wide open. Under the towering city wall of the imperial city, a group of cavalrymen was seen standing quietly like a rock amidst the cold rain. Even though their iron armors were soaked through by the rain, none of them moved an inch. Their mounts were strong and healthy black panthers. Between their green eyes, they were emanating a terrifying aura. At first glance, one could see a dark mass of cavalrymen with no end in sight. Yan Empire's Liaodong Iron Cavalry was second only to Qin Empire's Tomb Armor Cavalry and Chu Empire's Deer-Chasing Iron Cavalry. Together with them, they were known as the strongest killing machines in the world. Wherever they went, no one could stop them. Suddenly, the thick and dense clouds above G City began to melt like snow under the scorching sun. Bright sunlight pierced through the cracks and sprinkled down like arrows. It's here. Inside and outside G City, countless people's hearts raced. Billions of eyes turned to the sky, where a pitch-black magic vortex appeared. 8 gigantic shadows of devils were wheeling around the vortex. Although their eyes were closed, they were still emanating a frightening aura. Immediately after that, true devil guards, clad in full black armors and riding on nightmare horses, rushed out from the vortex like a black tide. The cold eyes of the leading true devil guard met with the Liaodong Iron Cavalry on the ground, which were as still as mountains. The air suddenly became heavy. Endless true devil guards formed a diagonal formation and spread out to both sides, like a pair of huge wings spread out. When the first trace of blood appeared, the Liaodong Iron Cavalry on the ground suddenly took a deep breath. The Holy Nether Guard was the private armed force of the Holy Emperor of Diabolism. Although there were not many of them, they were known as the number 1 military division in the world. Since ancient times, in the several wars that affected the world, the Holy Nether Guard's participation was extremely limited, but every battle was earth-shattering. So far, they had never tasted defeat. The Liaodong Iron Cavalry had a brilliant record. The reason why they were ranked after tomb armor and deer-chasing Iron Cavalry was that they had been defeated by the Holy Nether Guard and suffered countless casualties. That defeat led to the destruction of G City, the slaughter of the imperial family, and the interruption of the inheritance. It was regarded as a deep-seated hatred by the entire Yan Empire, and it was also a shame that all the Liaodong Iron Cavalry had to remember in the first class after being selected. Sensing the murderous aura released by the knights on their backs, the savage and bloodthirsty Black Panthers let out low growls. But as the knights tensed their bodies, they quickly quietened down. However, their eyes became even greener and crueler. The 5,000 blood-red Holy Nether Guards formed the middle camp, followed by a large number of black-armored true Devil Guards, a total of 9,000 riders, forming the tailwing formation. As soon as the 9-5 supremacy was formed, a monstrous aura shot into the highest heavens. In the next moment, 9,000 true devil guards and 5,000 holy nether guards fell to one knee. "Greetings, your majesty, holy emperor." 9 giant and fierce flood dragons roared as they drilled out of the vortex. They pulled a giant chariot that was black, purple, and gold. It was like a divine mountain had descended from the highest heavens, instantly occupying everyone's sight. Then, endless awe rose from the depths of their souls. Layers of light swept around the chariot like raging flames, like a magnificent army galloping forward. One figure was particularly clear. He sat motionless, but he seemed as if he could compare with the sun in the skies. His momentum that seemed to control the world made it impossible to look directly at him. "Assemble!" The Liaodong cavalryman roared and slammed his hand on his breastplate. The Black Panthers beneath him roared into the sky, their killing intent soaring into the heavens. In the chariot, another figure that no one noticed turned around and smiled. "Your Majesty, do you think that the immortal sect is deliberately making you unhappy? There are so many entrances, but they have to choose G City. Who doesn't know that under the heavens, Great Yen hates our holy emperor palace the most?" Qinyu smiled and said lightly, "Even if the people of Yen hate us and are angry, so what?" Yu Qi's eyes lit up, but in the next moment, she lowered her head and restrained her emotions. She pretended to tease. "You are indeed the holy emperor of our devil path. Your domineering attitude is admirable." Qin Yu shook his head helplessly, knowing that he would visit the immortal sect. Yu Qi had to follow him no matter what. She said that they were old friends, so she couldn't be absent. Outside G City, some important figures of the Yen Empire had come out to welcome him. The Yen Emperor was holding a banquet in the palace, waiting for the Holy Emperor to attend. Anything that happened would be handled by the demon attendant. These people were not qualified enough for Qinyu, the Holy Emperor, to care about them. The great Yen Empire's Prince Ji Yunyue, under the imperial decree of our emperor, welcomes the demon emperor. "Greetings, your majesty." A middle-aged man dressed in the robe of a prince bowed without hesitation, his tone extremely respectful. He knew that the person in the chariot was the most powerful figure under the heavens, far more powerful than the Yen Emperor. Even though he was a prince, compared to the demon emperor, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. But when he thought of the intense reaction of the imperial court and the imperial clan to the demon emperor's arrival in G City, Prince Ji Yunyue couldn't help but feel a headache. If he bowed today, he feared that in the future they would crazily attack and scold him. But His Majesty the Emperor had ordered him to be in charge of welcoming the demon emperor, and he had even personally told him what to do. He had no room to refuse. The demon attendant took a step forward, and the aura of a calamity immortal supported the sky. "Prince, no need to be so polite. His Majesty, the Holy Emperor, is looking forward to meeting the Yen Emperor." Words had to be beautiful, even if the demon attendant knew that the people of Yen wished to destroy the entire demonic path dozens of times over. Ji Yunyue smiled and stood up. "I invite His Majesty the Demon Emperor to G City." 9,000 true devil guards and 5,000 holy nether guards crowded around a giant chariot. Under the watchful eyes of the Liaodong cavalry, they entered G City in a single file. The streets had been cleared, and there was no sign of the people of Yen. But behind the doors and windows on both sides of the street, there were eyes filled with hatred. Qinyu frowned. "Yu Qi, I only know the gist of it. What happened in the past that made the people of Yen hate the demonic path so much?" Yu Qi smiled. "I read through the ancient books in the Holy Palace, and I happen to know a little more." She revealed a fascinated look. About 20 million years ago, a great war broke out between the immortal path and the demonic path. It swept through the entire world, and all 7 empires were involved. At that time, His Majesty the Holy Emperor was called Qi. One of his companions was implicated and killed by an assassin. I don't know what kind of investigation was carried out, But His Majesty the Holy Emperor locked onto Yen Kingdom and brought 10,000 holy nether guards to Ji City. He tore apart the battle formation of the Liaodong cavalry and killed his way into the great Yen imperial palace alone. That was a great catastrophe, and it nearly wiped out the bloodline of the great Yen imperial clan. Blood dyed the entire Ji City red, and countless people of Yen died. In that year, the Emperor of Yen Kingdom mobilized the destiny of Great Yen to fight, but he was killed by Emperor Qi with a single sword strike. His body and soul were destroyed, and the destiny of the true dragon collapsed. For the sake of a beautiful woman, he beheaded all the enemies. The deeds of Emperor Qi made the reputation of the demonic path soar, but it also made Great Yen view us as their mortal enemy. Even after 20 million years, this hatred has not been resolved. Therefore, in the land of divinity and demons, Yen Kingdom has the weakest forces of the demonic path. In order to develop the secret forces of the demonic path, thousands of cultivators of the demonic path have disappeared from this land forever. Qin Yu nodded slowly. Since he had become the new holy emperor, he would enjoy the honor, status, and power that came with it. Naturally, he would also have to bear the pressure. The long procession moved along the wide streets of Ji City. Gradually, anger and alarm appeared in Ji Yunyue's eyes. He glanced at the expressionless demon envoy and took a deep breath. He cupped his hands together and said, "Demon envoy, excuse me for a moment." When the demon envoy nodded, Ji Yunyue turned around. His complexion instantly darkened. "Immediately go and investigate why the procession was heading towards the east gate of the imperial palace." This was an arrangement that had already been made. If no one interfered, there would be no mistake. Thinking of this possibility, Ji Yunyue's heart sank. As he thought, the cultivators that were sent out never returned, and the entire procession didn't move in the slightest. Ji Yunyue didn't care about anything else. He urged his horse to the front of the procession. Looking at the unfamiliar Liaodong cavalryman leading the way, he lowered his voice and shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" A cavalryman bowed. "Your Highness, Prince, we are following orders." This was all he said, no other explanation. Ji Yunyue clenched his teeth and roared, "I don't care who you are. Change the route to the palace immediately, or else I will make you." His voice stopped abruptly. The procession turned the corner, and the majestic imperial palace came into view. It was too late. Outside the east gate of the imperial palace, a group of cultivators dressed like Yen stood solemnly. The leader was a white-haired old man with a skinny face and fierce eyes, staring at the approaching procession. Behind him, a Yen cultivator stepped forward and shouted, "The statues of great Yen dynasty's emperors are here. Devil cultivators, stop and pay your respects." With the help of a strong cultivation base, the voice burst out and spread across the entire procession in an instant. Almost half of Ji City could hear it. After a brief silence, the people of Yen walked out of their residences and onto the long street, staring coldly at the procession of devil cultivators. "Dismount and pay your respects to great Yen dynasty's emperors. Devil cultivators, you should pay your respects to great Yen dynasty's former emperor. Devil emperor, come out and pay your respects to our emperor." Low roars that were filled with hatred overlapped with each other and transformed into a mighty sound wave. The Liaodong cavalry began to waver. Black leopards roared, as if they would follow their master into the fray at any moment. The situation took a sudden turn for the worse, as if they were about to lose control. The 9,000 true demon guards and 5,000 holy nether guards instantly responded. The 9-5 great array changed from advancing to attacking. A wild aura erupted like an awakened demonic dragon. There was a sudden silence in front of the imperial palace, but then there was an even louder uproar. Countless people of Yen looked at the fearless demonic procession and became even angrier. The demon envoy's face darkened. He coldly stared at the imperial palace, besieging His Majesty the Devil Path's sacred emperor. Was the Yen Empire playing with fire? He lifted his hand, and 9,000 true demon guards and 5,000 holy nether guards unsheathed their weapons at the same time. A cold voice sounded out. If anyone dares to attack His Majesty the Sacred Emperor's imperial carriage, kill them without mercy. Kill, kill, kill. The true demon guards and holy nether guards roared out in unison. Ji Yunie's eyes turned red. What are you doing? Are you trying to rebel? His eyes fell onto the people of Yen in front of the imperial palace's east gate. He hurried forward. Imperial uncle, what are you doing? If you don't stop them, I fear they will provoke a war between Great Yen and the demonic path. Shut up. Imperial uncle Ji Changkong's complexion was icy cold. As a direct descendant of the Great Yen Empire, you actually disregard your country's shame to greet the demon emperor. I am ashamed to be associated with you. Ji Yunie nearly fainted from anger. He was acting on the emperor's orders. If he wanted to settle accounts, he should first look for His Majesty the Emperor. Why was he angry at him? Ji Yunie took a deep breath and said, Imperial uncle, now is not the time to make a ruckus. Please take your people and leave. Don't cause any more trouble. Everyone here was at the Calamity Immortal Realm. They called him Imperial Uncle because of seniority and also because of his status as an immortal sect elder. But he had to act with propriety. Chapter 612. In the Imperial Chariot, the smile on Yu Ji's face disappeared. I think the entire Great Yen doesn't want to be well. Qin Yu shook his head. There's no need to care about him. He's just a mad dog. The Yen Emperor isn't stupid and won't let him do as he pleases. Yu Qi had a serious expression, but that old dog has already begun to act recklessly. Qin Yu was startled. For a time, he wasn't able to fully adapt to the change in his status. As the demonic path's holy sovereign, he represented the dignity of the entire demonic path. Thinking about it carefully, the actions of the Yen people were indeed out of line. To put it more seriously, it was enough to cause a commotion. The sound of galloping horses could be heard from the east gate of the imperial palace. Several riders were galloping over. The person at the front dismounted and unfolded the golden imperial edict. His Majesty has decreed that your Majesty the Demon King has a high status. There is no need to follow the etiquette of the Yen Kingdom. Please enter the palace directly to attend the banquet. Putting away the imperial edict, he bowed with a smile on his face. His Majesty, the Emperor of my country, is very disturbed by these mistakes. He left a verbal order for this servant to convey his apologies to your Majesty, the Demon Monarch. Please do not take offense. The devil attendant was expressionless, but he sneered in his heart. However, this was a message from the Emperor of the Great Yen Kingdom, so it was not appropriate for him to respond on behalf of the Emperor. In the imperial carriage, a calm voice sounded. I appreciate Emperor Yan's good intentions. Since the people of Yen do not welcome us, then the demonic path will not enter the imperial palace. Emperor Yen, please open the entrance. Yu Qi was surprised. Qin Yu blinked. Our demonic path doesn't fear the Yen Empire, right? Then there's no need to spoil them or give them any face. The Emperor of Yen had set up a banquet in the sky and directly refused to enter the imperial palace. Simply put, this was no different from a slap in the face. If it were any other empire, Qin Yu might have hesitated. But Great Yen, since they were mortal enemies, he did not mind adding a little more grudge. The eunuch's face turned green, but the Demon King had already spoken, so there was no room for him to argue. He quickly kowtowed, turned around, and rushed back to the large palace. In the imperial palace, Emperor Ji Huaigu sighed softly and frowned. Although his expression was still calm, the emperor and empress, who had been in harmony with each other for many years, could still see his suppressed anger at a glance. Your Majesty, what happened? The Yen Emperor patted her hand. It's nothing. The demon monarch won't enter the palace. I'll go welcome him. The Empress looked worried. Your Majesty, the Yen Emperor smiled. It's nothing. With the identity of the demon sovereign, apart from Emperor Chu, everyone in the 7 great empires has to lower their heads to him. I'm fine. Taking a step forward, the Yen Emperor disappeared from the sky-bearing palace. When his foot landed, he walked out of nothingness and came to the east gate of the imperial palace. His demeanor was calm and composed, and he had a faint smile on his face. However, the aura of an emperor had already erupted, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was like a descending sun, facing the imperial carriage from afar. Greetings, Your Majesty. Rumble! Everyone was kneeling on the ground outside the imperial palace. When the furious Ji Chongkong saw the smile on the Yen Emperor's face, his expression changed slightly. He bowed as well. Facing them head-on, the demonic path cultivators didn't move at all. They even maintained their previous battle formation, their momentum not weakened in the slightest. The Yen Emperor smiled and cupped his hands. The demon monarch came in person, but we did not personally come out to welcome you, causing a small accident. Please forgive us, demon monarch. The maid serving the carriage lifted up the heavy curtains and parted to reveal Qin Yu's sitting figure. Emperor Yen, there is no need to be so polite. I don't have much time left, so open the entrance to the immortal sect. The Yen Emperor nodded. All right. He lifted a hand and spread out his fingers, drawing a circle in the air. Layers of spatial fluctuations erupted and a golden gate appeared. Demon monarch, please. Qin Yu nodded. The maid lowered the curtains and the demon envoy lifted a hand. The 8 demon phantoms revolving around the black vortex suddenly opened their eyes. 16 solid eyes fell on the golden gate. A layer of fine and exquisite black veins quickly appeared on its surface, like flowers blooming one after another. The demon envoy sensed with rapt attention, not hiding his distrust of the Yen Emperor at all. After several breaths of time, he nodded and said, Your Majesty Saint Sovereign, please give the order. Enter the immortal sect. Bang! The 9,000 true demon guards and 5,000 holy nether guards followed this order. Their auras rose, as if they could break apart the world. In this world, the only existence that could cause the demonic path to treat seriously was the immortal sect. The 2 sides had fought for countless years and viewed each other as mortal enemies. For billions of years, this was the first time that the demon monarch had done something like this to the immortal sect. They had to let the immortal sect see the essence, energy, and will of the demonic path. A long line of people poured into the open golden gate. The Yen Emperor calmly watched this all the way until the last true demon guard vanished from sight. The golden gate vanished from sight. Ji Yuniwe had a look of shame. Your Majesty, I was unable to complete my mission. I ask that Your Majesty punish me. The Yen Emperor looked over. It's not your fault. It was my lack of consideration. He turned to Ji Chongkong. Royal uncle, please follow me. He stepped forwards and returned to heaven, lifting palace. The grand banquet had already been arranged, but there was no one present. The Yen Emperor took a deep breath. He looked at Ji Chongkong standing in the hall and said, Royal uncle, please remember this. You are not just an elder of the immortal sect, but also a high prince of my great Yen Empire. Ji Chongkong's complexion changed. Your Majesty, what do you mean by this? Could it be that my actions today were out of consideration for the immortal sect? His complexion was cold and severe. Your Majesty, do not forget the humiliation my great Yen suffered. How many ancestors were buried under the hands of the demonic path. My great Yen imperial family's bloodline was nearly severed because of this. Enough! The Yen Emperor roared out. I am the Emperor of the great Yen. All of the humiliation my ancestors suffered is a scar that is engraved in my heart. Every day. It reminds me that I cannot forget it. However, Royal Uncle should be clear that the great Yen Empire does not have the strength to fight the demonic path. Revenge is the responsibility of all the descendants of the great Yen imperial family. However, we only have one chance. We must be extremely cautious. We do not wish for something like today to happen again. Royal Uncle, please return. Ji Changkong's complexion was ashen. He flicked his sleeves and left. The Yen Emperor suddenly slammed his palm on the imperial table. All the tables, chairs, and plates in the hall instantly shattered, turning into powder. Ignorant fool, you have ruined our plans. A few black figures appeared in a corner of the heaven-lifting palace. Your Majesty, the demon monarch is already on guard. We cannot continue. Let's find another opportunity. The strange voice made one's brows twitch. The Yen Emperor waved his hand, and the black figures bowed at the same time. Then they took a step back and disappeared. The entrance to the immortal sect in G City had already made all the necessary preparations. When the golden doors opened and a long line of demonic path troops walked out, the envoys of the clear nether realm, the Buddhist nation, and the Nine Heavens Realms Moon Palace had already come forward to welcome them. We respectfully welcome the demon monarch to the immortal sect. Purple Moon was expressionless. Together with the Nether Realm's Grand Marshal and the Buddhist nation's Bodhisattvas, they bowed towards the black, purple, and gold imperial carriage. Immortals and demons were mortal enemies, but it was because of this that they had a deep understanding of each other's strength. Both of them wanted to put the other to death, but neither of them had the confidence to do so. They didn't want to easily provoke a battle, so they had to do a good job on the surface. Thus, today the three giants of the immortal sect had each sent their peak characters to welcome the demonic path's envoys. Suddenly, Purple Moon frowned. A sharp feeling rose up in her heart, as if there was a blade pressing down on her back. She looked up, her eyes turning sharp as she looked at the imperial carriage. But that restless feeling had already vanished. He was truly worthy of being the demon monarch. He was unfathomably deep. Even a simple glance was able to give her such a strong sense of crisis. Purple Moon didn't think too much about it, so she naturally didn't know that her aura had been locked onto. Yu Qi looked at Qinyu, who had his eyes closed. That woman is Purple Moon. She already knew what happened in the past. Qinyu nodded. When he opened his eyes once more, they were calm. He hadn't found Ningling yet, so he couldn't cause any more problems. He would let her live in peace for several more days. The demon envoy stepped forwards and bowed. Grand Marshal, Bodhisattva Wish, Great Elder Purple Moon, thank you for personally coming. My demon monarch must be tired from the journey, so please arrange a place for us to stay. The one that came from Clarity Nether Realm today was another Grand Marshal. He smiled and said, "The palace has already been prepared and the journey isn't too far. I ask the demon monarch to follow behind us." The demonic path's contingent spread out in the immortal sect. They were like a great flag flapping in the wind, attracting the attention of countless people wherever they went. Although they were incomparably arrogant, the immortal sect cultivators couldn't help but admit that they did have the strength to compete with the immortal sect when they saw the momentum of the demon monarch's contingent. The contingent passed through a mountain range, and the demonic path contingent suddenly stopped. The demon envoy flew over and pointed a finger. "Everyone, His Majesty the Saint Sovereign likes this place very much. He hopes to stay here." Purple Moon looked in the direction of the finger, and her complexion darkened. The Grand Marshal frowned. "Demonic servant, this place is so remote that no palace has been built. If the demonic emperor were to stay here, I'm afraid it would be beneath his status." Purple Moon continued, "In addition, this place belongs to the domain of Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. Most of the people inside are female cultivators, so it might not be too convenient." The demon envoy lightly said, "Could it be that within the immortal sect, Your Majesty the Saint Sovereign cannot choose another place to stay?" The Buddhist kingdom's bodhisattva had a peaceful aura. His eyes flashed as he heard this. Since the demon monarch has spoken, the immortal sects will naturally agree. Decima nodded slowly and turned around. Purple Moon clenched her teeth. Since the demon sovereign insists, then we will live here. The demonic path troops landed. The surrounding dozens of mountains were cleared away in an hour, and a tight defense was laid down. Wherever the demon sovereign went, it was a temporary, demonic domain. This was the authority that a supreme being of this world should have. The immortal sect would not interfere. As the demon envoy led the true demon guards and holy nether guards to inspect the surrounding environment, Qin Yu and Yu Qi climbed to the summit together. Beneath the pavilion, he reached out a hand and stroked the railing. Looking at the boundless sea of clouds in front of him, he slowly let out a breath. Yu Qi sensed something. His Majesty came here? Qin Yu helplessly shook his head. You have good eyesight. He paused for a moment before continuing. In the past, when I was tricked into coming to the immortal sect by Purple Moon, I lived on this mountain. The pavilion you and I are in is a place where I like to rest and relax every time I cultivate it. Yu Qi soon found the key point. She was also here at that time. Qin Yu smiled. That's right. Every time I left seclusion, Ningling would immediately come over. She would personally make several dishes, and we would drink together, watch the scenery, and chat. Yu Qi bit her lips. When your Majesty was in the Holy Emperor Palace and accepted the worship of the demonic path, you didn't even smile so happily. Qin Yu was silent for a moment. That was indeed the most beautiful memory of my life. At that time, she and I were filled with longing and longing. I thought that as long as we worked hard, we would never be separated again. But that was all a plot. Yu Qi said in a soft voice, that woman, Purple Moon, definitely never imagined that your Majesty would have such achievements. Otherwise, she would have been too scared to show her face. Qin Yu smiled. I won't hide it from you. When I first survived, all of my beautiful dreams turned to nothing. I wished that I could tear her to shreds. But looking at it from another angle, if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be where I am today. In a way, Purple Moon can be considered my achievements. Although I still hate her, it has already weakened a great deal. Right now, I just want to find Ningling. As long as she is safe, I can forget about everything that happened in the past. Looking at Qin Yu's expression, Yu Qi suddenly felt extremely jealous of Ningling. They had met Qin Yu at nearly the same time. So why was she able to obtain all of his sincerity? After so many years, no matter how his cultivation and status changed, even when he reached the highest peak of the land of divinity and demons, Qin Yu's heart hadn't changed in the least. Just what had Ningling done for the heavens to treat her so generously? Qin Yu's words interrupted her rising mood. Tell the demon envoy to inform 9 Heaven Mirror Moon Palace that I want to pay a visit to Shen Yuanin. Another woman jumped out. Not only did she have an honored status, but she was rumored to be extremely beautiful, like a goddess that had descended to the world. Yu Qi suddenly felt a bit of resentment. Your Majesty, you must know that Shen Yuanin is the most mysterious of the immortal sect's 3 giants. It is said that not many high-level figures of the immortal sect have seen her before. Your Majesty, are you sure that Shen Yuanin will be willing to see you? Qin Yu nodded. She will. Everything that occurred in the Sea of Purgatory rapidly flashed through his mind. There was a doubt in his heart that needed an answer. Shen Yuanin was the key. The demon envoy was well aware of the Saint Sovereign's true goal in visiting the immortal sect. After receiving Yu Qi's message, he immediately contacted the immortal sect. When it came to 9 Heaven Mirror Moon Palace, the one who received him was Purple Moon. The demon's sovereign wishes to pay a visit to the palace master? Purple Moon revealed a look of surprise. She never thought that the demonic path would be so impatient. Moreover, the first one to visit wasn't the Buddhist sovereign or the nether domain master, but the new master of 9 Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. In Purple Moon's eyes, this was a sign of importance. She was overjoyed, but she soon shook her head and refused. Demon Envoy, please tell the Demon Sovereign that my palace master has gone into seclusion several days ago. She has ordered that no matter what happens, she is not to be disturbed. Thus, I fear that the Demon Sovereign's visit will not be possible. The Demon Envoy's complexion was a bit ugly. The palace master is in seclusion? When will she leave? Purple Moon said, I'm not sure. The news that their visit had been refused soon spread back. As Yuchi looked at the message, a strange expression crossed her face. Qin Yu frowned. What news? Yuchi took out a jade slip. Your Majesty, you will understand once you take a look. Qin Yu's previous attitude had been filled with confidence, but now he had been rejected so cleanly. This was a bit strange. Qin Yu wasn't an impulsive person, so could there be some other accident here? Qin Yu probed the jade slip with his divine sense, his eyebrows furrowed together. Although he didn't speak, he could sense his mood from the tiny changes in his expression. Yuchi probed, is it because the Demon Envoy didn't convey the message clearly? Do you want me to try again? She had only said these words to ease the atmosphere, but after thinking about it, Qin Yu nodded in agreement. She suddenly felt sad. With Qin Yu's current status, he actually wanted to try a second time after being rejected. This could only show how much importance he placed on this matter. Yuchi tried her best not to reveal any other emotions. She smiled and bowed before leaving. She wanted to personally pay a visit to 9 Heaven Mirrormoon Palace to ensure that the Saint Sovereign's will wasn't mistransmitted. Purple Moon frowned. If Yuchi wasn't a woman at the Demon Sovereign's side, she wouldn't have met with such a minor character. My words are clear. The Palace Master is in seclusion and cannot be disturbed. I have no intention of disrespecting the Demon Sovereign, so I ask Miss to pass on my message. Yuchi sucked in a deep breath. Great Elder Purple Moon, my Demon Sovereign is looking forward to meeting with the Palace Master. If possible, before she finished speaking, she was interrupted. Purple Moon stood up and said, there is no need to repeat the same words a second time. I have other matters to attend to. Miss Yuchi, please do as you wish. After Yuchi left, Purple Moon revealed a thoughtful expression. With the Demon Sovereign status, after being rejected the first time, he actually sent someone to inquire about her. This was extremely abnormal. Just why did he want to see the Palace Master? Night fell. Qin Yu sat alone in a pavilion at the summit of a mountain. He faced the mountain winds without expression, his face pale. Shen Yuanin didn't want to see him. This was indeed unexpected. Just what was the reason? If he directly asked the immortal sect about Ningling's whereabouts, there was a high chance that new problems would arise. Qin Yu didn't dare to take this risk, and this filled his chest with impatience. At this time, Qin Yu's complexion changed. He stood up and stepped forwards, instantly vanishing from sight. Although the Demon Envoy didn't believe that the immortal sect would dare to openly plot against the Saint Sovereign, he still didn't dare to be careless. After personally inspecting the area, he returned to a temporary cabin to rest. This was the center of the entire defense system. If anything happened, he would be able to arrive in the shortest time possible and deal with it. The cabin wasn't too large. The Demon Envoy pushed open the door and walked in. He walked over to a cushion and sat down. Then he suddenly frowned, as if something wasn't right. The Demon Envoy's eyes flashed open and his heart raced. With a loud shout, he lifted a hand and pressed down. As if he had struck a stream of water, a cold Yin aura surged upwards. This is bad. His body stiffened. A pale palm pressed against the Demon Envoy's chest. Even though he had taken advantage of the sneak attack, the other party had still paid a price. Bang! With a dull sound, the sneak attacker was sent tumbling backwards. He spat out a mouthful of blood that fell onto the Demon Envoy's body. In the next moment, the person vanished like a phantom. It was only at this moment that the shock waves erupted from their battle. The cabin was instantly blown apart. The true demon guards guarding outside were instantly sent, flying away. The defense system was instantly activated and countless footsteps rushed in from all directions. The demon envoy sucked in a deep breath and loudly said, "I am fine. Everyone, hold your positions and don't fall into the trap of luring the tiger away from the mountain." Qin Yu walked out from the darkness. It wasn't a trap. His expression was dignified. The sneak attacker's aura was very strange. He managed to escape. Seeing that the Saint Sovereign was fine, the demon envoy relaxed. He spat out several mouthfuls of blood and clenched his teeth. "Your Majesty, the one who sneak attacked me was someone from the Immortal Sect." At almost the same time, the Immortal Sect camp that was guarding the Demonic Path camp also erupted into chaos. When the Immortal Sect elders arrived, they saw an incomparably bloody scene. 14 Immortal Sect cultivators had exploded and died. Broken bones and flesh covered the ground. Ji Changkong was vomiting out a great mouthful of blood, his expression fierce like a ghost. Demon Envoy, I will never let you off." Chapter 613. The cultivators of the 14 immortal sects were killed, and Elder Ji Changkong was severely injured. When news of this spread, the immortal sects were in an uproar. News of the demonic Tao spread like wildfire. Outside Ji City, there was a conflict between Ji Changkong and the team from the Devil League. Those who died tonight were all from Yen. Therefore, they had sufficient motive. Although there were some people who felt that something wasn't right, no matter how rampant the demonic path was, they shouldn't be this stupid. But there were even more immortal sect cultivators whose chests burned with rage. To kill immortal sect cultivators within the immortal sect, and even nearly kill an elder, was simply unimaginable. Enraged immortal sect cultivators gathered outside the mountains, surrounding the dozens of mountain peaks where the demonic path was stationed. No one spoke, but the silent rage was undoubtedly even more terrifying. The air was so oppressive that it felt like it was about to freeze into ice. Suddenly, a warm yellow cloud appeared in the sky above the mountain peak. A giant Buddha phantom appeared, and chants resounded throughout the world. "The Lord of the Buddhist nation has descended." Soon after, another long river appeared. It meandered across the sky, rumbling as it flowed into the distance until it disappeared from sight. "It's the Nether Domain Master." The immortal sect cultivators outside the mountains were shaken. 2 giants had already arrived. It was clear that they would definitely investigate this matter. There was an ordinary courtyard in the middle of the mountain, but this unremarkable place could be said to be so dazzling that one couldn't look at it directly. The number of people who were qualified to be called supreme in the world could be counted on 2 hands, and at this moment, 3 of them were gathered in this courtyard. The Buddhist nation sovereign and Nether Domain Master stood on the left, and Qin Yu stood on the right. Immortal and demonic, the air was as thick as mud. The Nether Domain Master broke the silence. "I am overjoyed that the demon sovereign has graced us with his presence at the immortal sect, but I never imagined that something like this would occur tonight." He swept his eyes around. "Where is the demon attendant?" The immortal sect's elder Ji Changkong wants to confront him. Qin Yu frowned. He realized that something was wrong. His thoughts raced as he eliminated the possibility that the immortal sect had orchestrated all of this. With the status of the Buddhist nation ruler and the Nether Domain Master, they wouldn't do things in such a petty manner. This wasn't because they trusted them, but because they were well aware of the breadth of mind and boldness of those on the same level. There is definitely something wrong with this matter. I hope that the immortal sect can investigate it thoroughly. When Ji Changkong, who was being supported by someone, heard this, he roared angrily. Investigate what? The truth was right before their eyes. The Demon King probably didn't expect that the demon servant would be exposed. The 14 disciples of the immortal sects were all the most outstanding juniors. They all had a brilliant future ahead of them. But now they were all dead. A debt of blood can only be repaid with blood. The demon's servant must pay for everything he has done with his life. Qin Yu was expressionless. He said in a low voice, "I can understand Elder Ji Changkong's feelings for such a thing to happen. However, this was not the doing of the demon attendant. When the immortal sect cultivators were killed, the demon attendant suffered a sneak attack at nearly the same time and is now severely wounded." Ji Changkong laughed loudly. Preposterous! Could the demon monarch be saying that the demonic servant was sneak attacked by my immortal sect? He raised his hand and touched his glabella. A shadow wriggled and appeared. Demon Emperor should be familiar with this. It's the great divine ability of the Holy Emperor Palace, Shadow Soul Devouring. This divine ability is extremely difficult to cultivate, and there are no more than 3 masters of the demonic path. In the current immortal sect, the only one that knew this demonic path supernatural ability was the demon attendant. As for this shadow, it was left behind by the person who ambushed me and killed my immortal sect disciples. The Buddhist nation's sovereign lightly said, "Demon Emperor, although there are many doubtful points in this matter, my immortal sect elder has already produced evidence. Please have the demon attendant come out." "There is no need to trouble your majesty. I have already arrived." The demon attendant's voice sounded out. He walked into the courtyard with a pale face. He first respectfully bowed to Qin Yu before standing up and looking at Ji Changkong. "In order to frame my immortal sect, Elder Ji Changkong is truly daring. He didn't hesitate to use the lives of 14 Yen people to frame me. I admire him." "Shut up!" Ji Changkong roared. "Demon attendant, don't think that I don't have evidence." He lifted a hand and grasped forward. The demon attendant stuffily coughed, and faint traces of silver light pierced through his clothes, condensing into the phantom of a wisdom king in the air. "This is a supernatural ability that I created based on the Buddhist nation's motionless wisdom king. I created it on a different path and modified it. I call it the fury of the wisdom king. Under the heavens, I am the only one who can control it. How do you explain this?" The demon attendant's complexion changed. Although he had sensed the aura of an immortal sect cultivation method from the person who ambushed him, he didn't expect there would be something like this. Ji Changkong's unique supernatural ability had actually left behind a mark on his body. This was troublesome. The Buddhist nation's sovereign lightly said, "I can prove that Ji Changkong's words are not false. The motionless wisdom king was originally taught to him by me." The Nether Domain Master looked up. "Demon Emperor, you must give the immortal sect an explanation." Although he didn't believe that the demon attendant would do such a horrifying thing, the evidence was right in front of him. As one of the 3 giants of the immortal sect, the Nether Domain Master didn't mind taking this chance to kill the demon attendant and eliminate a calamity immortal powerhouse of the demonic path. Qin Yu's frown deepened. "I can only say that the murderer is not the demon attendant. When he was ambushed, I was beside him and even fought with the attacker." The Nether Domain Master said, "Demon Emperor, did you capture him?" Qin Yu shook his head. "That person's cultivation is too strange. He escaped." The Buddhist nation's sovereign looked up. Light swirled in his eyes, seeming as if they could pierce through all illusions. "Demon Emperor, with your status, you can personally vouch for this as evidence. I can see that the demon attendant's chest is stained with blood that doesn't belong to him." The demon attendant hesitated for a moment. "That's right. It is the blood of the person who ambushed me. I counterattacked him before he escaped, causing him to spit out blood." The Buddhist nation sovereign nodded. "In my Buddhist nation, there is a supernatural ability that can trace back to the source. One can use hair, flesh, blood, and other objects to condense a blood god child and find the original owner of the object. I will display this supernatural ability so that we can see just who the attacker is." He lifted a hand and pointed forwards. The bloodstains on the demon attendant's chest suddenly peeled off, restoring themselves to life. They condensed in midair, turning into a seed-like blood god child. Just as it finished condensing, the blood god child began to hum and tremble. Then, without hesitation, it flew into Ji Chankong's body. The demon attendant roared, "Impossible!" The hall fell deathly silent. "Ha ha! Ha ha! My blood, it is my blood!" Ji Chankong clenched his teeth. "The demon attendant is the murderer." He looked up, his eyes filled with ridicule. The solemn demon emperor, the highest existence in the world, actually lies with his mouth. Today, my horizons have truly been broadened. Yu Qi was shocked and angered. "Shut up. Just what sort of status does my demon emperor have? How can you slander him?" Ji Chankong lifted a hand and pressed down. "A mere maid dares to be so rude to me? You are courting death." Qin Yu's eyes turned cold. A terrifying aura appeared in the void, and the suppressive strength was instantly annihilated. Bang! There was a deep sound. It wasn't loud, but it seemed as if the entire world trembled. The Buddhist nation's sovereign had no expression. "Demon Emperor, do you want to silence him?" Qin Yu lightly said. "If I want to kill him, he will definitely die." The Buddhist nation sovereign smiled. "Demon Emperor, you can try." The heavy atmosphere made it hard for one to breathe. Purple Moon suddenly said, "Demon Emperor, the evidence is conclusive. There is no need to quibble and hand over the demon attendant." This storm had occurred within the borders of Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. But because Shen Yuanin was in seclusion, there was no room for them to interfere. Everything was led by the Buddhist nation and Nether Realm. Seeing that the situation was about to be decided, Purple Moon had to represent Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace and make her voice heard. The merit of forcing the demonic path to bow their heads had to be given to Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace, no matter what. Shen Yuanin had refused to meet him. The demon attendant had been framed, and the immortal sect was deliberately forcing him. Qin Yu's eyes became increasingly cold. Purple Moon's words became the last straw that broke the patience in his heart. He looked up at Purple Moon and coldly said, "If I really wanted to kill someone, the one I wanted to kill the most would not be Ji Chankong." Purple Moon frowned. "Who does the Demon Emperor want to kill?" "You, Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace's Great Elder Purple Moon." Qin Yu's tone was slow. Every word seemed to drill out from deep winter snow, emitting a bone-chilling chill. Purple Moon's heart trembled and her body turned icy cold. Then she angrily smiled. "Demon Emperor, I originally had a bit of hesitation in my heart, but now I can confirm that the one who killed my immortal sex cultivators is the demon attendant, someone as arrogant as you can do anything." Qin Yu's expression was indifferent. He didn't respond to her words. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, "Everyone here might not know this, but today is not the first time I have come to the immortal sect." The demon attendant and Yu Qi's complexions changed. They never thought that Qin Yu would directly bring up this news that would greatly stimulate the immortal sect. But looking at the firm expression on his face, the two of them hesitated again and again. But in the end, they didn't try to dissuade him. That was a matter from dozens of years ago. When I came to the immortal sect, I lived in this courtyard in front of you. It's a bit laughable to say that I actually harbored thoughts of joining the immortal sect in the past. The Buddhist nation sovereign and Nether Domain master frowned. With Qin Yu's status, it was impossible for him to lie. But for the dignified sovereign of the demonic path's Holy Emperor Palace to say that he once had thoughts of joining the immortal sect, that was simply unimaginable. Purple Moon's eyes widened and her face paled. She stubbornly stared at Qin Yu, as if she wanted to find something from his face. Qin Yu continued to say, "In the past, I harbored beautiful fantasies of the future and worked hard to cultivate in order to obtain recognition. In truth, my performance was very good, but in the end, all I obtained was a complete and utter scheme. I still remember the despair and fear of that day. When I reached the final juncture of my cultivation, The strength in my body suddenly went out of control. That terrifying yin and yang energy was enough to blow me to pieces, destroying both my body and soul. At the time, I also thought I would die. He looked up. Great Elder Purple Moon, when you learned that I was in Four Seasons City in the past, did you find it hard to believe? But I still lived. I lived to this day and became the master of the demonic path's Holy Emperor Palace. Purple Moon's complexion paled. She screamed, "Impossible, you are speaking nonsense." Qin Yu lifted a hand and brushed it across his face. His face changed slightly, restoring the appearance he had when he first entered the immortal sect. Perhaps you will find this face even more familiar. In the depths of the Buddhist nation sovereign's eyes, trillions of nebulas exploded. No wonder he could faintly feel that there was an aura entangling with the demon sovereign. So it was him. Alchemy, Grand Master Ning Qin. Demonic paths, Holy Sovereign Yao Bin, those were all aliases. His true name was Qin Yu. The Nether Domain Master's heart sank. What the immortal sect had done to Qin Yu was enough to turn both sides into mortal enemies. For such a person to become the master of the Holy Emperor Palace, that was without a doubt the worst possible news for the immortal sect. Qin Yu stood up. A terrifying aura instantly descended. With just a thought, it seemed as if the heavens and earth would collapse. He looked straight at Purple Moon, his voice icy cold. That is why I said that if I were to kill someone, I would kill you first. In the immortal sect, he had revealed his true identity. For the things he had suffered in the past, he had demanded the price he deserved. His thoughts surging, Qin Yu's black robes tumbled about him. Black, gold, and purple runes appeared on their own, weaving together to form patterns that represented the highest authority of the demonic path. A demonic dragon, covered in black flames, roared out from his back, seeming as if it would soar into the heavens. Beneath the contrast of the Holy Sovereign's robes, he was like a demon god that had descended into the world. His pressure was as vast as the starry skies, causing one to feel fear and despair. Qin, you stepped towards Purple Moon. I once swore that I would definitely kill you. I would grind your bones to ashes and refine your soul so that you would never be able to reincarnate, and I would even make the entire immortal sect pay a disastrous price for your stupidity. But now, I am willing to give you a chance. Hand over Ningling, and I will forget everything that happened. He stopped and roared, "Now give her back to me." Bang! The entire courtyard was instantly turned to powder. An aura soared into the skies, wrapping around it and sending it flying into the heavens. The wind howled, the clouds roared, and the skies darkened with it. Shen Yuanin had avoided him, blocking off any possibility of Qin Yu secretly taking Ningling away. He couldn't find another chance, and he didn't want to wait any longer. Revealing his identity might not have been the best choice, but it was definitely the most likely to succeed. Purple Moon stuffily coughed, and blood flowed out from the corners of her lips. Panic flashed in her eyes, but she calmed down in the next moment. Qin Yu, the new holy sovereign of the demonic path, was actually that boy from the past, that boy who was as weak as an ant in her eyes. Purple Moon had to admit that she regretted her actions. If she knew that Qin Yu had such astonishing potential, then she might have made another choice, or she might have directly killed him and cut down the weeds by the roots. But thinking about these things now was meaningless. There was only one thought in Purple Moon's mind, and that was that she absolutely could not let him know the truth. In this world, there was no longer any Ningling. There was only her last disciple, the peerless genius that Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace had secretly raised, and the current palace master, Shen Yuanin. She died. Purple Moon lightly said, "In the past, not long after you ran away, your boundary collapsed and you lost control of your cultivation. I tried to save her, but there was nothing I could do. Ningling wholeheartedly wanted to die. She didn't want to continue living. The highest boundary of lies was to combine truth and falsehood. Qin Yu was well aware that although Ningling seemed indifferent to others, she was actually hiding deep feelings for him. If she really thought he had died, then it was possible that Ningling would lose the courage to continue living. Qin Yu's field of vision darkened. He clenched his fists, his nails piercing into his flesh. "You are lying. I investigated her before. She is still alive." Purple Moon had no expression. "That should have been many years ago. In order to save her, I used a treasure to forcefully preserve Ningling's last shred of life. But 10 years ago, she thoroughly died without a trace left behind." When one reached large success of the sublime lost emotion code, what they severed was not only their own emotions, but also their relationship with the world. To a certain degree, they stood above the rules. Qin Yu closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they seemed to be soaked in blood, emitting faint traces of blood-red light. "I do not believe a single word you say." He looked at the Buddhist nation sovereign and nether domain master. "You should be aware of the matter between me and Ningling. If she really dies, then I vow that for the rest of my life I will be irreconcilable enemies with the immortal sect. The war of immortals and demons from this moment on, begins." No one doubted Qin Yu's words. The feeling he gave off was that he was like a volcano that could erupt at any moment, on the verge of losing control. The Nether Domain Master's first thought was to immediately find Ningling and control her in his hands. Qin Yu's feelings were so deep. In his hands, this woman would be an extremely important chess piece. But he immediately gave up on this idea, not to mention whether or not Qin Yu would go berserk. Because of this, the demonic path absolutely wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. Once this matter was handled improperly, it would cause a turmoil that would sweep through the world. In particular, the immortal sect's plans had reached a critical juncture. In truth, he hoped that everything would be peaceful so that no accidents would occur. "Purple Moon," the Nether Domain Master slowly said. Purple Moon frowned. "Ningling has indeed died. Even if she kills me, it is impossible for her to come back to life." Her tone was firm, without the least bit of hesitation. The Nether Domain Master cursed inwardly. And indeed, as her voice fell, Qin Yu had already lifted his hand. "If she is dead, how can you live?" A deep and low voice sounded like the roar of a demon. With a loud rumble, the heavens crazily trembled, as if a drum were being beaten. "Kacha! Kacha!" Massive cracks appeared, rapidly spreading outwards until they reached the end of one's line of sight. Finally, the heavens began to shatter. Pieces fell down, revealing countless lines of rules below that wildly flashed without end. They were like bent bamboo, bulging outwards from within. The curvature became greater and greater until they finally began to collapse. A vast and majestic palace appeared where the lines of rules collapsed. It carried with it an unrivaled and disdainful aura as it descended into the immortal sect's small world, the demonic path's holy emperor palace. This was known as the #1 treasure in the world. Although it was only a projection, it already possessed the potential to swallow the heavens and chase after the sun. The Buddhist nation, sovereign, pressed his palms together. Layers of Buddhist light erupted, turning into a vast golden sea. A Buddha statue that supported the heavens rose from the depths of the sea. The Buddha statue was dignified and solemn. Its surface was covered with the marks of the passing years, as if it had drifted through the endless river of time for trillions of years. Now, it had been summoned by the Buddhist nation, sovereign, to descend. At this time, the statue suddenly opened its eyes. It pressed a hand forwards, its 5 fingers spread out as if they could cover the entire world. Bang! A heaven-shaking explosion rang out like 1,000,000 bolts of thunder exploding. Space violently twisted. Countless lines of rules appeared, as if they were strung together to maintain the integrity of space. But the earth beneath everyone's feet wasn't able to withstand this. As the strength smashed into it, it directly disintegrated. Therefore, what appeared in front of the cultivators of the immortal sect of the mountains was a scene that looked like the end of the world. As a circle of impact that was visible to the naked eye appeared, the space instantly shattered into countless pieces. As billions of roll lines flashed, mountains collapsed and disintegrated into countless rolling stones, forming waves of boulders. Traces of a terrifying aura spread out, causing the immortal sect cultivators to stiffen. Their faces were drained of blood. This was a level of strength that surpassed their imaginations. Just the tiniest bit of it was enough to leave them beyond redemption. If it weren't for the immortal sect world restricting the scope of the shockwave, they would have already been crushed to pieces like the mountain peaks in front of them. Chapter 614. Qin Yu had revealed his identity on his own initiative, and the situation had reached the brink of collapse. No one cared about the 14 Yen disciples that had died, and Ji Changkong had been severely wounded. Thus, no one noticed Ji Changkong's strange condition. His head was lowered and his body shivered, as if he were enduring something. Suddenly, a black that appeared in the depths of his eyes and quickly spread outwards, causing his entire eyeball to turn black. Ji Changkong's body stiffened. He closed his eyes and then opened them again. His eyes had returned to normal, but his face had become fierce and fierce. Demon Sovereign, you are now in my immortal sect. Don't be arrogant. With a roar, Ji Changkong's aura wildly erupted. The phantom of a towering mountain instantly appeared, endless and boundless, as if it could suppress all. With a loud rumble, winds and clouds surged. The phantom of the mountain crashed down, locking onto Qin Yu's aura. The demon sovereign's robes fluttered in the wind. The eyes of the demon dragon behind him suddenly turned a blood-red color. With a dragon roar, the demon dragon flew out from the robes. Its sharp claws shattered the phantom of the mountain, and its giant tail swept out. Bang! Ji Changkong was sent flying backwards. A wild, annihilating strength crazily eroded his vitality. His mortal body collapsed and disintegrated. Before he could fall, this great Yan imperial prince, an immortal sect elder, a peerless calamity immortal powerhouse, had turned to ashes in midair. His body and soul had been destroyed. This was the strength of a supreme being. Although they hadn't left the calamity immortal realm, they could erupt with the strength to kill a calamity immortal. Of course, the reason Ji Changkong had died so easily was because he hadn't dodged at all and had directly faced Qin Yu. If he wholeheartedly wanted to escape, even a supreme being would find it difficult to kill a calamity immortal. It was just like in Four Seasons City, when the Dao Arena Master personally attacked, but he still wasn't able to stop Woodchopper Fu. What was important was that Ji Changkong had died. An immortal sect calamity immortal elder had been killed by the demon sovereign in front of two giants, the Buddhist nation sovereign and the Nether domain master. This was enough to cause the situation to completely spiral out of control. Demon sovereign, you have gone too far. The Buddhist nation sovereign angrily shouted. The phantom of the Buddhist nation descended. Phantoms of Buddhas appeared and their chanting soared into the heavens. Qin Yu laughed. He offended me, so what if I killed him? If Buddhist nation sovereign is dissatisfied, then you can ask for it. The projection of the Holy Emperor Palace shined brightly like the sun. Its terrifying aura could crush everything. The battle between the two supremes was about to begin. At this moment, the air suddenly froze. It wasn't just a description, it was really frozen. A pale white frost appeared, covering everything between heaven and earth. Snowflakes fell from the sky, making everything blurry. There was a sudden silence. Only the faint sound of snowflakes falling to the ground could be heard. A figure trod on the snow. Her white dress fluttered in the wind. She was devastatingly beautiful, like a goddess walking out of a painting. Enough. Her voice was clear and pleasant to the ear, but it contained a chill that was enough to freeze one's thoughts, preventing one from having the slightest blasphemous thoughts. Qin Yu looked at her, the blood-red color in his eyes fading. He took a step forwards, his body covered in frost and instantly shattered. Shen Yuanin, You're finally willing to see me. The master of Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace, the most mysterious giant of the immortal sect, appeared in front of everyone for the first time. Her beauty was indescribable, as if all the beauty in the world had been gathered together. Stopping, Shen Yuanin's eyes were faint. Demon Sovereign, what has already passed is doomed to be irreversible. Why must you be so stubborn? Qin Yu frowned. Shen Yuanin, when we were in the sea of purgatory, you promised me that you would unravel the confusion in my heart. He took a deep breath. Now, please tell me just where is Ningling? Shen Yuanin's eyes drooped. I originally didn't want to mention this matter again, but since the demon sovereign can't forget it, then let's put an end to it. She looked up. Ningling is me, and I am Ningling. Everything that happened in the past was because I wanted to cultivate the sublime lost emotion code. I sealed myself and threw myself into samsara to temper myself in the world of mortals. Now that I have awakened, there's only Shen Yuanin in this world. There's no longer Ningling, demon sovereign. You already know everything today. Let the past fade away with the wind. Do not wallow in it, lest you harm others and yourself. Whether it was the immortal sect or the demonic path, everyone was stunned as they heard these words. This was clearly an explanation that surpassed everyone's imagination. Qin Yu frowned. He stared at her and shook his head. I don't believe you. I don't believe a single word you say. Shen Yuanin lifted a hand and spread open her 5 crystalline fingers. Within Qin Yu's chest, his heart began to vigorously beat, causing his boiling blood to rapidly flow through his body. The demon head behind him appeared on its own. Its eyes opened, and a deep demonic roar echoed through the world. The demon blood in your body was gifted to you by me in the past, so I can naturally stimulate it. Demon Sovereign, you should believe me now. Don't deceive yourself any longer. Qin Yu looked at her in a daze. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body wavered. Behind him, Yu Qi rushed forwards and held on to him. Your Majesty, Your Majesty! The demon attendant stood in front of him. 5,000 true demon guards and 3,000 holy nether guards rushed forwards from all directions, protecting Qin Yu. Samsara reincarnation. Tempering oneself in the world of mortals. What a good immortal sect. What a good sublime lost emotion code. The goal I worked so hard for all these years, the goal I fought for, was actually nothing more than a dream. In just several breaths of time, Qin Yu's voice became incomparably dry. He reared his head back and laughed, his laughter echoing through the world. In the blink of an eye, his black hair turned white. Yu Qi screamed, Qin Yu, what is wrong with you? Don't scare me, don't scare me. Qin Yu looked deeply at Shen Yuanin and closed his eyes. I am tired. Yu Qi, let's go. All right. Your Majesty, please rest first. We will leave immediately. Yu Qi was so distressed that she found it hard to breathe. She clenched her teeth and said, Lord Demon Attendant, you already know the meaning of the Saint Sovereign's words. The demon attendant stepped forwards. Immortal sect, please send my sovereign away. The Buddhist nation sovereign's eyes darkened. He met the Nether Domain Master's gaze. To the immortal sect, this might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But before they could say anything, Shen Yuanin lightly said, Pass down my order. Send the demon sovereign away from the immortal sect. She turned, her indifferent eyes covering the two of them. The chill in the air became even heavier. The Buddhist nation sovereign and Nether Domain Master's complexions changed. They immediately fell silent. Walala! The demonic path troops began to move. They were like a black cloud that rapidly flew far away. Shen Yuanin stood there quietly, her expression without the slightest change. Palace Master, perhaps you should give us an explanation. The Buddhist nation sovereign lightly said. Shen Yuanin lightly said, In the sea of purgatory, I once received the favor of others. She turned and took a step forwards, vanishing from sight. Humph! The Buddhist nation sovereign coughed. The surrounding space began to crack apart. It was only then that one could see that the space he was in had been frozen solid. The Nether Domain Master used the same method to break through Shin Yuanin's blockade. As he looked towards the direction she left, his eyebrows gradually furrowed together. The two supreme beings had dignified expressions. A horrifying thought appeared in their minds. But as they thought about it, they suppressed it. The two of them were well aware of just how terrifying the sublime lost emotion code was. Since Shan Yuanin had reached large success in her cultivation, she was no longer a person. Great Yan Empire, G City. The entrance to the immortal sect suddenly opened. The demonic path troops streamed out, their auras cold and their killing intent dreadful. In a tricolored carriage of black, purple, and gold, Yuchi looked at Chinyu, who was slightly curled up against her shoulder. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. She could imagine just what sort of torment Chinyu was experiencing in his heart right now. From the beginning of the Land of Exiles, he had constantly worked hard to make himself stronger, to make himself outstanding, to chase after her shadow. In order to find Ningling and live together with her, Chinyu had suffered all sorts of hardships and sufferings. Besides himself, no one knew of this. But in this world, there was no such thing as obtaining without reason. Chinyu was so dazzling in front of others, but behind his back he had to endure the corresponding trials and tribulations. Finally, he became the demonic path's holy sovereign, one of the supreme beings of the world, stepping onto the peak of the world. Thus, he came to the immortal sect to take away Ningling and fulfill his promise. He would be with her forever, never to be separated again. But in the end, all of this was nothing but a dream. In fact, strictly speaking, there was no such person as Ningling in this world. She was only a samsara, a part of the memories of others, a so-called tempering of the mortal world. Hard work, struggling, chasing, longing, all of it was like a bubble beneath the sun, bursting and dissipating. White hair, this was a kind of sorrow that could nearly kill one. It came from the soul, from the marrow, and was impossible to eliminate. One could only endure it. When Yuchi first heard this news, the joy that rose in her heart had now completely vanished. If she could, she would rather never approach Chinyu, rather than let him endure everything that had happened today. She couldn't help but tighten her arms and pull Chinyu into her bosom. Yuchi didn't say anything because, in this world, there was only sorrow that no one could comfort. The silent, demonic path squad refused the inquiry from the great Yan Imperial Palace and left G City. The Liaodong cavalry followed from afar. They had clearly been warned and didn't approach. The demon envoy glanced at the carriage and gently sighed. Everything that had happened today was far too cruel for His Majesty, the Holy Sovereign. He hoped that time would allow him to forget. He reached out a hand, and black light flowed between his fingers. But just as he was about to open the transmission channel, a change occurred. Bang, 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 bang. 4 sword intents soared into the sky. Terrifying sword shadows pierced the heavens. Countless sword lights appeared, condensing into a thick curtain of swords that wrapped around the entire squad of demonic path, cutting off all contact with the outside world. In the Imperial Palace, the frowning Emperor of Yan's face suddenly changed. He took a step forward and appeared outside the curtain of swords. Immortal extinguishing, immortal slaying, immortal slaughtering, immortal slaughtering. Immortal execution sword array. For figures, each appeared in a sword shadow. Terrifying cultivation base crazily poured into the sword shadows, and a violent sword cry resounded through the world. The Emperor of Yen clenched his teeth. These 4 old dogs have gone mad. Woodchopper Fu, Hunchback Old Man, Old Ghost Song, Fan Buyu, each of them had lived for countless years. They should have died long ago, but they were old monsters who struggled with all they had, unwilling to die in peace. Usually they hid here and there like rats in the shadows. But today they dared to do such a thing. using the immortal execution sword array to kill the holy sovereign of demonic path. If it was somewhere else, the Emperor of Yen would definitely applaud. But this was G City, where the blood feud between Great Yen and demonic path was absolutely irreconcilable. Even if he jumped into the Yellow River, he wouldn't be able to wash his name clean. If he could kill the holy sovereign, even if he had to risk the revenge of the demonic path, the Emperor of Yen would still dare to take the risk. But could the holy sovereign be killed so easily? Even if these 4 old monsters had used the legendary immortal execution sword array, the Emperor of Yen didn't think they could succeed. What to do? The Emperor of Yan's eyes flickered with uncertainty. But what he didn't know was that a few days ago, someone had already made the choice for Great Yen. Boom! The G City Grand Formation suddenly operated. A pillar of light soared into the sky, condensing into a golden dragon shadow, roaring and rushing into the curtain of swords. The golden dragon entered the curtain of swords like a fish in water, swimming quickly, dyeing the surface of the sword shadows with a layer of gold, making their power even more terrifying. Bastard! The Emperor of Yen flew into a rage. He suddenly turned around, and his eyes turned golden. His gaze pierced through all obstacles and fell on a secret hall in the underground of the imperial palace. Under the lead of 3 white-haired old men, a dozen of Great Yan's imperial family members cut their wrists, letting their blood flow into the formation plates on the ground. In this way, they avoided the Emperor of Great Yen, forcibly activating the power of the G City Grand Formation, and at the same time making the decision for the Emperor. Would the demonic path believe that this was only the action of a small number of Great Yan's imperial family members? In other words, Great Yen had no other choice. The Emperor of Yen took a deep breath, strode forward, raised both hands, and completely unleashed the power of the G City Grand Formation. The golden dragon in the sword curtain let out a joyful roar, and its body expanded crazily, almost doubling in size in the blink of an eye. It was impossible for Great Yen to stay out of this. If that was the case, they might as well give it their all and make the Holy Sovereign stay forever. The Holy Sovereign had entered the immortal sect and left in a hurry in just a day. The specific news had not spread yet, but judging from the atmosphere of the demonic path's troops, something unexpected must have happened. The Emperor of Yen had to think about it. It was highly possible that what happened today was secretly arranged by the immortal sect. It was indeed a misunderstanding, but whether it was true or not was no longer important, because in the outside world, Great Yan's attack could never escape the instigation of immortal sects. Otherwise, Great Yen, who had endured humiliation for so many years and never dared to fall out with the Fiend Tao, would never have the courage to kill the Fiend Emperor in public. Great Yan's choice was to drag the entire immortal sect down with them. When the Buddhist nation's sovereign and nether domain master obtained this news, their hearts were filled with anger. But the 2 of them were truly worthy of their statuses as supreme beings of this world. In the blink of an eye, they made their decision. With the yellow mud falling on their crotch, the immortal sect was destined to be the scapegoat. Then they could take advantage of the situation and gather their strength to kill Qinyu. If it weren't for Shen Yuanin stopping them, they might have already attacked just now. A demon sovereign that hated the immortal sect to the extreme should not be allowed to live in this world. Seal the news. Don't send it to 9 Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. The Buddhist sovereign and nether domain master gave their respective orders. Then they stood up and vanished from sight. In the next moment, both men descended upon G City, waving their hands at the same time. Countless lines of principles emerged between the heaven and earth, interweaving into layer after layer of a gigantic web that completely enveloped the heaven and earth, concealing all the auras. Within the curtain of swords, the injured demon servants, 5,000 true demon guards, 3,000 holy nether guards, and the others had all vanished from sight. All that was left was a lonely imperial carriage of black, purple, and gold. Qin Yu calmly looked at Yu Qi. Be obedient and wait inside. It is far too dangerous for you outside. Yu Qi grasped his hand. I won't let you be alone again. Qin Yu frowned. Aren't you afraid? Yu Qi smiled. I believe in your majesty. So what if I die? To be together with you, I have no regrets. Chapter 615. The immortal slaying sword array for tribulation transcenders, the Yen Empire's emperor. Two supremes of the immortal sect, such a lineup wasn't even enough to describe it as earth-shattering. But to kill him, this wasn't enough. Beneath his white hair, Qin Yu's eyes were cold and fierce. His eyes flashed with some sort of paranoid and morbid madness. His current state of mind was unprecedentedly bad. It was like a volcano was burning in his chest. If he didn't vent it, he would be burnt to ashes. These people had delivered themselves to his door on their own initiative. Not only did Qin Yu not feel fear, but he instead felt an urge to destroy them. This desire to destroy also included himself. Yu Qi's willingness to die with him filled Qin Yu's heart with warmth, allowing him to regain some clarity from the urge to destroy himself. He hugged Yu Qi and said in a soft voice, Don't worry, nothing will happen to us. The projection of spectral disaster that Undying left behind was more than enough to reverse the situation. Immortal Sect, 9 Heaven, Mirror Moon Palace. Within the main hall, a chill penetrated into the marrow. Everything was sealed in ice. The extreme low temperature was enough to destroy all life. Lan Ruo stood outside the main hall. She nervously looked at the center of the frozen hall, at the beautiful figure. She had an anxious expression. Just what was the relationship between her honorable master and the demon sovereign? Why would a simple meeting cause a backlash from her master's cultivation method? To the large success of the sublime lost emotion code, this was nearly unimaginable. Thus, the might of the backlash was terrifying to the extreme. Even with her honorable master's current cultivation, an accident might occur. Luckily, the worst situation didn't occur. As Lan Ruo's complexion paled, the terrifying chill in the main hall began to weaken. The ice receded like a receding tide. Everything that was covered by it remained in its original state. However, when Lan Ruo rushed into the main hall, the two thick and sturdy rattan trees at the entrance were blown away by a slight breeze and turned into fine powder. Then the thick columns, the neatly arranged tables and chairs, the majestic beast heads, the murals, everything was completely erased. Xin Yuanin opened her eyes. Her aura became even colder, and the indifference in her eyes caused Lan Ruo's heart to skip a beat. She subconsciously stopped. Honorable Master! Xin Yuanin's eyes flashed, and the chill around her retracted. The demonic path has left? Lan Ruo respectfully said, reporting to Honorable Master, the demon sovereign has left the immortal sect world. She bit her lips. Honorable Master, your condition. Xin Yuanin lightly said, No problem. Lan Ruo lowered his head, his eyes instantly turning red. How could there be no problem? She also cultivated the supreme lost emotion technique, so she was naturally clear about the inheritance method of 9 Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. But since her master said it was fine, it meant that she didn't want to ask too much. Suddenly, footsteps came from outside the hall and stopped outside the entrance. Lan Ruo frowned. She had already instructed that no one was to disturb them. Xin Yuanin frowned. Come in. A female cultivator of Mirror Moon Palace hurried into the hall. Your servant offers greetings to Palace Master, young Palace Master. Something has happened in Great Yan's G City, and the Fiend Emperor has been besieged. As one of the 3 major immortal sects, the news might be blocked for a while, but it wouldn't last for too long. Xin Yuanin closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her pupils were as cold as ice, without the least bit of warmth. The Buddhist nation sovereign and Nether Domain Master were no longer in the immortal sect world. Without hesitation, Xin Yuanin stood up and vanished from sight. Outside G City, the immortal executing sword array shook the heavens and earth. A terrifying curtain of sword light howled, and an aura of annihilation flowed out from within. Immortal extinguishing, immortal slaying, immortal slaughtering, immortal slaying. The origins of these four peerless divine swords were unknown, but each one had cut down 1 trillion lives and were known as the most vicious weapons in the world, because they had killed too many people. These four divine swords had undergone a mutation. They now possessed an endless destructive strength, and after being activated, they became even more terrifying. Moreover, the ones guarding the immortal executing sword array were 4 old monsters that were struggling in this world, unwilling to die. Each one of them was an extremely tyrannical existence within the calamity immortal realm. And with the addition of the Yen Emperor, the immortal executing sword array was supported by the strength of the great Yen nation's destiny true dragon, causing the sword array's might to rise to another level. But the most terrifying thing was when the 2 supreme masters of this world took action. Within the imprisoned world, the majestic phantom of a Buddha supported the world. He pressed down with a single hand, covering the curtain of sword light. Endless streams of powerful Buddhist light flew into the curtain of sword light, causing lines of scriptures to appear on the surface of the whistling sword light. This scripture was called Rebirth, the Buddhist kingdom's soul-surpassing scripture. Today, it was used to send off the demonic path's holy sovereign on his final journey. The earth beneath the curtain of sword light began to collapse bit by bit, annihilated into nothingness. The pure pitch-black color seemed to connect to the abyss of hell. A cold and despairing aura was constantly released, causing the edges of the sword light to take on a deep black color. The Buddhist scriptures caused the quality of the sword light to transform, and the abyssal aura gave it an even more terrifying tearing ability. Although it seemed ordinary, it actually caused the might of the entire sword array to rise by over 10 times. With the current immortal executing sword array, if an ordinary calamity immortal were to be trapped within it, they would be torn to pieces in several breaths of time. Black, purple, and gold imperial chariots erupted with endless divine light. They wove together, turning into a spinning vortex that resisted the destructive strength of the outside world. Qin Yu straightened his back and held Yu Qi in his arms. He could feel her warm aura, as if the pressure of the outside world had been reduced by a great deal. His pale face was indifferent. He didn't want to face her, but he couldn't help but admit that in the depths of his heart there was still a tiny hope that she would appear, that everything just now was fake. Yu Qi looked up at Qin Yu. Although he didn't say anything, she could sense that he was hiding his thoughts. His eyes turned a bit sour. Even now, Qin Yu couldn't completely forget her, but he immediately sighed inwardly. If he could forget her so easily, then he wouldn't be Qin Yu. Creak, creak, the tricolor vortex began to tremble. Even though the imperial chariot itself was a precious treasure of the Holy Emperor Palace, it could only resist for a moment at most. Yu Qi didn't know of the existence of the spectral scourge projection. In her opinion, this meant that death was imminent. She tightly held onto Qin Yu. At this moment, she felt a faint sense of pride, because the one who would accompany this man until the very end was her. Ningling, whether you truly exist or whether this is just a dream, I haven't lost to you. A warmth spread across his face, bringing with it a soft and fragrant breath. Qin Yu revealed a look of surprise. He looked at Yu Qi, who had lowered her head to avoid his eyes. Is this your way of comforting me? He paused for a moment and then continued. But as I said, neither of us will die. Don't blame me for taking advantage of you in the future. His voice was calm, but Qin Yu felt as if a boulder had been piled up in his chest. Every breath he took became particularly difficult. She didn't appear. This was reasonable. Taking a deep breath, Qin Yu looked up. His eyes pierced through the tricolored vortex and fell onto the endless curtain of swords. Some sort of intuition suddenly drilled out from the depths of his heart, telling him that the Tao Arena Master was about to make his move. Before he could finish his thoughts, a strange voice sounded out in his ears. Demon Emperor, my master asks you when will he make his move? Qin Yu looked up, but just as he was about to make his decision, something unexpected happened outside Ji City. Space shook and Shen Yuanin stepped out. Her indifferent face was filled with endless majesty. An icy cold aura blotted out the sky and covered the earth, filling the world in an instant. The sky darkened and large snowflakes began to fall. Emperor Yan's pupils violently shrank, filled with anger and shock. He stamped his foot on the ground. Behind him, a barrier soared up into the sky, protecting the entire imperial city. In the next moment, snowflakes began to fall and touch the surface of the barrier. Amidst cracking sounds, traces of ice began to appear. Without the protection of this formation, Ji City would be completely wiped out under the heavy snow. This was the true terror of a supreme existence in this world. Palace Master, what is the meaning of this? Emperor Yan roared. Shen Yuanin said indifferently, retrieve the destiny of Great Yan Kingdom, or else I will destroy the entire Ji City. Think carefully, I will not repeat the same words twice. Emperor Yan's face turned livid. Palace Master, I need a reason. Shen Yuanin lifted her hand. In the skies above Ji City, dark clouds crazily surged, and traces of extreme cold descended. The Buddhist nation's sovereign turned around. Palace Master, please don't forget that you are one of the 3 masters of a mortal sect. Do you really want to become our enemy because of the Demon Emperor? Shen Yuanin's complexion didn't change. Her palm slowly pressed down, and the surface of the barrier that covered Ji City was instantly frozen. Beneath the barrier, the temperature crazily fell. Traces of pale white frost began to rapidly spread throughout Ji City. Emperor Yan roared out, "Stop!" He clenched his teeth. The golden dragon phantom in the sword barrier roared into the sky, escaping from it. He didn't doubt that Shen Yuanin could really destroy the entire Ji City, because she was the master of 9-Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. The Buddhist nation's sovereign frowned. The eyes of the Buddha phantom that supported the heavens began to glow with killing intent. Kacha! Kacha! A layer of ice appeared on the surface of the Buddha phantom. Shen Yuanin's pure, white dress suddenly began to flutter in the wind. The Nether Domain Master stepped forward, standing between the two. Enough! Do you want to provoke a civil war within the immortal sect? Humph! The Buddhist nation's sovereign coldly said, You will have to ask 9-Heaven Palace Master about this. Shen Yuanin's tone was calm. Let the Demon Emperor leave. After today, I will not interfere in anything. The Nether Domain Master deeply looked at her. Good. I hope that the Palace Master can abide by today's promise. The meaning behind his words was clear. He would not allow such a thing to happen again. Even if one was a supreme being of this world, it was impossible for them to truly be free from restrictions. The immortal sect bestowed them with unsurpassed authority and status, but this was also a shackle that prevented them from doing anything that truly endangered the immortal sect. Shen Yuanin nodded. She stepped forwards, her body like a phantom. She instantly tore through the sword barrier and entered the space within. On the tri-colored carriage, Qin Yu silently stood there. As he looked at Shen Yuanin walk out from the sword barrier, joy filled his eyes. I knew you would come. Shen Yuanin had an indifferent expression. The reason I helped you is because, in samsara, I once received the graciousness of the Demon Emperor. From now on, you and I are even. There will no longer be any connection between us. Qin Yu frowned. In the immortal sect world, you already helped me once, so I don't believe this reason. Shen Yuanin lifted a hand. With a light puff, Qin Yu looked down at the ice sword that had pierced through his heart. Her icy cold voice echoed in his ears. Demon Emperor, I will remind you one last time. Do not try to provoke my bottom line again. The ice sword had pierced through his heart. For a saint step demon body, this wasn't a serious injury, but the cold intent directly penetrated into his marrow. Qin Yu's lips moved. He sighed, "So it's like this." Chapter 616. Every ice sword fragment turned into an extremely cold aura that drilled into Qin Yu's flesh and blood, embedding itself like iron nails. "Kacha! Kacha!" Light blue ice instantly covered him, turning him into an ice sculpture. It was like a seal that suppressed all of Qin Yu's aura. Within his soul space, a black dot appeared. It broke out of its shell, and countless black roots drilled into Qin Yu's soul. The originally deathly still black began to emit dull thumping sounds. Like a heart that had been activated, it began to gradually synchronize with Qin Yu's heartbeat. On the surface of his body, the light blue ice began to break apart, falling off piece by piece. This was because it had completed its mission. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood. Before it could fall, it froze into a block of ice and fell to the ground with a light, smacking sound. Qin Yu seemed to awaken. He looked up at the indifferent Shen Yuanin. His lips moved, but before he could speak, his body slumped to the ground. The 4 old monsters guarding the immortal slaying sword array all revealed looks of ecstasy. Indeed, a woman's heart was the most poisonous. The 9 Heaven Palace master had severely wounded Qin Yu without any effort, taking advantage of his weakness to take his life. They were all experienced characters. They naturally wouldn't miss out on such a good opportunity. Extinguishing immortal. Slaughtering immortal. Slaughtering immortal. Exterminating immortal. The 4 old monsters stood up at the same time. The sword curtain rumbled as trillions of sword lights roared out. Kill! The sword curtain rapidly shrank. The howling sword lights began to rapidly fuse together, turning into even clearer sword phantoms. The sword phantoms rose up and pointed straight at Qin Yu. Before they even arrived, they already released an aura that could destroy all. The Buddhist nation sovereign and Nether Domain master glanced at each other, puzzlement in their eyes. But it soon disappeared. Although they didn't know why the 9 Heaven Palace master had attacked Qin Yu, they only wanted the result. The current situation was even better than before. With a wounded demon sovereign, the difficulty of killing him would undoubtedly be much lower. However, right at this moment, the two's expressions changed simultaneously. The shrinking curtain of swords suddenly came to a halt. In the next moment, a massive gap appeared on the surface of the sword curtain, as if it had been ruthlessly cut by a saber. The figure of a man and a bird appeared beside the gap. The strange, 3-legged bird was retracting its wings. Obviously, the gap in the sword screen was caused by it. A few black feathers fell to the ground. The strange bird's eyes turned cold as it roared. "You 4 old bastards! You just destroyed my feathers!" With a flap of its wings, the monstrous bird flew out with a speed as fast as lightning, diving into the sword screen. Dojo Master. Solitary Westgate. Although it was only a back view, the aura of a supreme being was as dazzling as the sun, and that hateful 3-legged bird. The 2 of them simultaneously thought of what happened in 4 Seasons City in the past. It seemed that Solitary Westgate and the Demon Sovereign had reached some sort of agreement. This was troublesome. Although they were all supreme beings of the world, there were still differences in strength. Even the masters of dojos in the world could be ranked in the top 3. While it was impossible for him to fight 3 of them alone, it was not difficult for him to disrupt the situation and take away the demon monarch. Furthermore, even though he was seriously injured, the demon emperor was still the demon emperor. He was not to be underestimated. But today was an excellent opportunity that they absolutely could not miss. The Buddhist nation sovereign and Nether Domain master stepped forwards. With a flick of their sleeves, they tore open the sword screen and entered. It wasn't that they wanted to destroy the immortal slaying sword array, but that they were well aware that since that strange 3-legged bird was angry, the sword array was meaningless. It was the nemesis of all array formations in the world. No matter how powerful they were, they could easily destroy them. And indeed, when the Buddhist nation sovereign and nether domain master entered, the sword screen was already riddled with holes. The strange three-legged bird screeched as it fled in all directions. Wherever it went, the sword phantoms would collapse. The explosive strength was causing damage to the sword screen itself. In simpler terms, they were using the strength of the sword screen to destroy it itself. Woodchopper Fu nearly cried out of grievance. These four old fellows had summoned the greatest courage of their lives and used the spies they had prepared for countless years to finally drag the immortal sect and the Yen Empire into this quagmire. They were just about to succeed, so why did they have to jump out? What did this matter do to them? Between people, can't there be a little more, a simple beauty of helping others achieve their goals? Moreover, if they came, then they came. Why did it have to be the Tao Arena Master and that strange bird? As Woodchopper Fu saw these two, his legs couldn't help but shiver. It was over. Today's plan was doomed to fail. In the future, he could only wait for the crazy retaliation of the demonic path. Woodchopper Fu suddenly stood up. Without saying a single word, he turned and left. Maintaining the sword array and working together? To hell with it. His life was the most important. Just as he turned around, he heard the sound of the immortal slaying sword array collapsing. Woodchopper Fu cursed inwardly. These bastards! Luckily, I ran away quickly. To be able to live like a mouse until now, it wasn't just because of various life-prolonging methods, but also because he was as timid as a mouse. Seeing the situation turn bad, he didn't care what the consequences were. In order to survive, he would do anything. The Tao Arena Master's eyes were ice cold. As he looked at Woodchopper Fu and the other three fleeing, he coldly humphed inwardly. Qin Yu was his turning point to resurrect his wife and child. Before this was achieved, he was of paramount importance. Wanting to kill him was undoubtedly challenging the Tao Arena Master's bottom line of tolerance. Today, it wasn't convenient for him to chase them down. But solitary Westgate would remember this matter in his heart. To be remembered by such a terrifying supreme being, the consequences would undoubtedly be horrifying. The Buddhist nation sovereign frowned. What a bunch of useless trash. They didn't even have the courage to fight to the death, and yet they wanted to comprehend and transcend the great terror of life and death? They were simply dreaming. Even if another 1,000,000 years passed, or even 10 million years passed, they were still doomed to accomplish nothing. He took a step forwards and looked straight at the Tao Arena Master. Today's war between the immortal and demonic realms has nothing to do with the Tao Arena. If fellow Taoist Westgate can withdraw, the entire immortal sect will be eternally grateful. Even if they knew the chances weren't too high, this was the respect that should be given to a supreme being of this world. The immortal slaying sword array loudly collapsed, dissipating from the world. The three-legged strange bird hatefully stared in the direction that the four old monsters fled in, its eyes filled with cruelty. It let out a strange cry and flapped its wings to fly back. Don't be delusional. The demon sovereign is my master's friend. If you know what's good for you, then go and do what you need to do. Stop wasting your breath here. The Buddhist nation's sovereign's eyes were ice cold. As a supreme being of this world, his dignity could not be offended. If there is a chance in the future, I will take you into my Buddhist pagoda and use the power of trillions of Buddhas to enlighten you. The three-legged strange bird cursed out loud. You damned Baldy! What nonsense are you spouting? If you want to fight, then come at me. This bird, Lord, has never been afraid of you. Its momentum was arrogant, but as it spoke it flew behind the Tao Arena Master, blocking the Buddhist nation's sovereign's line of sight. Shut up. How could the status of the Buddhist nation sovereign allow you to offend him? Solitary Westgate berated. He cupped his hands together and said, Buddhist nation sovereign, domain master, I have been entrusted by the demon sovereign to accompany him to the immortal sect and ensure his safety for the time being. If possible, I ask that you give me some face and allow me to send the demon sovereign away. The nether domain master had no expression. Fellow Taoist Westgate is strong, and we admire you endlessly. But my immortal sect's 3 masters are also present. Fellow Taoist Westgate, I ask that you reconsider. The immortal sect has never had any thoughts of becoming enemies with the Tao arena. Solitary Westgate glanced at the deathly pale Chinyu. He lightly said, the immortal sect's 3 masters are present, but that doesn't mean they all have thoughts of killing the demon sovereign. The air suddenly fell silent. Shen Yuanin said, I have already said that the demon sovereign will leave today. If it weren't for their status, the Buddhist nation sovereign and nether domain master would have cursed out loud. Big sister, just what is the meaning of this? The one who severely wounded the demon sovereign and created the opportunity was you, and now the one who jumped out to oppose killing him is you? Are you playing with us? If the 3 masters joined forces, then even if solitary Westgate protected them, they still had a chance of killing the demon sovereign. But looking at Shen Yuanin's intentions, it wasn't just withdrawing. Once they attacked, she would turn hostile. The Buddhist nation sovereign and nether domain master paled. They angrily coughed and turned to leave. Today was simply a farce. Thank you, 9 Heaven Palace Master. Solitary Westgate cupped his hands together and then teleported away with Chinyu. Shen Yuanin stood where she was. She lowered her head, covering up the pain deep in her eyes. Chinyu, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Once the sublime lost emotion code reached large success, there would be no turning back. If Shen Yuanin admitted that she was Ningling, she would suffer a terrifying backlash. Her soul would wither away, and she would die. If she died, Chinyu would surely be heartbroken. If he were to blame her for this, Ningling feared he would choose to end his life. Thus, Shen Yuanin had to ensure that she was still alive. She had to bury Ningling in Chinyu's heart and have him give up on searching for her. This was also the so-called cycle of samsara. When that ice sword exploded just now, it wasn't Shen Yuanin who attacked. To be more accurate, it was the large success will of the sublime lost emotion code within her. Because of the backlash from before, she had already begun to show signs of losing her will. Chinyu, Chinyu, you have to live, you have to. As she whispered to herself, Shen Yuanin's face paled. Dark red blood leaked out from the corners of her lips, falling onto her white dress like a blooming flower. Space shattered inch by inch, collapsing inward. Shen Yuanin closed her eyes and fell backwards. Immortal sect, 9 Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. Shen Yuanin walked out from the shattered space. Cold energy lingered around her, and with every step she took, layers of ice would form around her. Lan Rua's footsteps came to a sudden stop. Her eyes widened. Honorable Master. Before she finished speaking, her eyes turned red and her body shivered. Shen Yuanin's eyes were icy cold, as if the midwinter wind could penetrate into her bones. She turned her head slightly and felt her soul freeze, finding it hard to think. Within Lan Rua's body, the sublime lost emotion code automatically revolved, resisting the terrifying oppression. This seemed to awaken Shen Yuanin's consciousness. She paused and looked away. I'm fine. She continued forwards, her figure gradually vanishing from the hall. Snow began to fall from the skies. Massive snowflakes covered the earth, turning the world into a vast expanse of white. With 9 Heaven Mirror Moon Palace as the center, the temperature crazily fell. Rivers rapidly froze over, and the trees that swayed in the wind came to a standstill. If one were to look up from the highest heavens, they would be able to see white ice and snow spreading outwards at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chapter 617. Four Seasons City, Tao Arena. Looking at the white-haired Chinyu, who had a weak aura and was in a trance, solitary Westgate didn't feel any disdain or confusion. Rather, he was filled with understanding and sympathy. This was because he was a deeply sentimental person to begin with. Because of the death of his wife and son in the past, it had formed a knot in his heart, causing his mind to be unable to reach perfection. He had never been able to take that final step. Perhaps in the eyes of others, when one's cultivation reached such a level, they would already have the world in their hearts and would instead be trapped by their emotions. But in this world, there were always some stupid people. Even if they knew something was wrong, they still couldn't be controlled by reason. But whether it was because he appreciated Qin Yu, approved of him, or simply considered reviving his wife and son, solitary Westgate wouldn't stare helplessly on as he fell into depression like this. He hesitated for a moment and looked at the muddle-headed Qin Yu lying on the bed. Solitary Westgate said, "Are you disappointed in today's confrontation with the Buddhist nation's sovereign and nether domain master? Do you think the legendary supreme beings of the world are nothing more than this?" Without waiting for a response, he continued to say, "Qin Yu, the truth is that what you see is only the surface. The reason I was able to easily bring you out of the trap today is because the Buddhist nation's sovereign, nether domain master, and even myself are not our true bodies. The supreme beings of the world have transcended the great terror of death and can shine as brightly as the sun and moon of the world. We all wish to take a step further, to surpass the tribulation immortal level and understand the essence of the great Tao. Because of this, all the supreme beings of the world, besides the previous great Chu emperors, have fused their bodies into the world in an attempt to perceive the source of the great Tao. Cultivating an avatar is extremely difficult. Once it is damaged, it will even implicate the main body, forcing one's cultivation to stop or even regress. This is one of the reasons why the Buddhist nation sovereign and nether domain master gave up so easily today." On the bed, Qin Yu's eyes turned. Even in his current state, he could still hear these highest-level secrets of the world. Solitary Westgate lifted a hand. But there is a second reason, and it is also the most important one. Nine Heaven Empyrean Palace Master Shin Yuanin doesn't want to kill you. Qin Yu turned his head, waiting for his next explanation. The concept of samsara does exist, but I have never heard of Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace's inheritance mentioning this aspect. Moreover, I cultivate a supernatural power that can sense the soul aura. Nine Heaven Empyrean Palace Master isn't as cold and heartless as she seems after injuring you." Qin Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. Arena Master Shimon's meaning is Solitary Westgate shook his head. "I cannot confirm or guarantee anything, but I have some information that might be able to help you. The supreme inheritance of Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace is called the Supreme Lost Emotion Incantation. This cultivation method has extremely high requirements for talent, and after cultivating it, one's power is terrifying. However, it had a huge drawback. Those who cultivated the Supreme Emotion Forgetting technique would gradually lose their emotions and become cold and apathetic. Moreover, once you've cultivated it to the large success stage, you absolutely cannot have any more feelings. Otherwise, you will suffer a backlash from the cultivation method and your soul will wither and die." Qin Yu almost instantly thought of the greatest possibility. Xin Yuanin was Ningling, but because she had reached large success in the sublime lost emotion code, she didn't dare to recognize him. But that sword that pierced through his heart not too long ago, he looked up and asked what he was puzzled about. When Ningling had shattered that ice sword, he had felt a thick, killing intent. Solitary Westgate slowly said, "It is rumored that when the Supreme Emotion Forgetting technique reaches large success, a second consciousness will appear within the cultivator's body. Once there is a backlash, the second consciousness condensed from the cultivation method will have a chance of taking over control of the mortal body." Qin Yu closed his eyes. He could almost confirm that this was the truth of the matter. Otherwise, after Ningling shattered that ice sword, there was a chance she would have caused even greater wounds to him. As he thought of how she might be withstanding a tremendous torment right now, Qin Yu wished he could immediately appear by her side. His breathing quickened. Solitary Westgate seemed to guess his thoughts. He earnestly said, "Qin Yu, it is best if you don't approach Xin Yuanin right now. This won't be beneficial to either of you. Qin Yu's surging thoughts paused for a moment before receding like a falling tide. He opened his eyes and said, "Thank you for the reminder, Arena Master Shiman. I understand." Solitary Westgate smiled. "Since you understand, then you should properly recover from your wounds. If there is anything else, we can talk about it after your wounds are healed." Outside G City, the demonic path's holy sovereign had been besieged. Because of this, the immortal sect's 3 masters had gathered together. It was impossible to cover up this sort of explosive news. In the shortest period of time, it spread throughout the entire land of divinity and demons. As long as a cultivator heard this, regardless of their background or status, their complexions changed. Countless influences entered a state of emergency. They summoned back their cultivators overnight, doing their best to appear harmless. It was impossible for such an important matter to be easily revealed. The peaceful coexistence of the immortal and demonic paths was bound to be broken. As the only 2 transcendent influences in the land of divinity and demons, there were existences that stood above all others. Their confrontation would have an incomparably profound impact on the entire world. The next day, the demonic path officially announced that they had entered a state of war with the immortal sect. 2 hours after this news was released, within the borders of the Great Han Empire, an immortal sect was annihilated. Over 3,000 cultivators from that sect had died without a single survivor. 6 hours later, 27 immortal sect spies within the borders of the Great Qin Empire were uprooted. Because of this, over 10,000 people were implicated. In the 12th hour, 63 minds that the immortal sect directly or indirectly controlled were completely destroyed by the demonic path. The immortal sect didn't show any weakness. When their first subsidiary sect was exterminated, they launched their retaliation against the demonic path. For a time, both sides fought back and forth. Every decision was followed by countless heads soaring into the skies and blood sprinkling onto the earth. The aura of war descended without warning. Like a thick black cloud, it enveloped everyone. 4 Seasons City's Tao Arena. After Qin Yu was able to move freely, he immediately went to find Solitary Westgate. The first thing he said was, "Fellow Taoist Westgate, do you know of any method to counteract the backlash of the Sublime Lost Emotion Code?" Solitary Westgate gestured with a hand. After Qin Yu sat down, he said, "Qin Yu, I've been looking through the ancient texts these past days, and I've had some harvests." He poured a cup of tea and placed it in front of Qin Yu. Solitary Westgate continued to say, "The Sublime Lost Emotion Code walks the extreme road, severing all emotions and desires in exchange for a pure and powerful mind. Through this, one can obtain a formidable strength. But in the end, when one cultivates to this step, what they walk is the road of rules. Frankly speaking, the backlash strength of the Sublime Lost Emotion Code is a backlash of rules. If there is enough external strength that can counteract the backlash of rules, then Xin Yuanin will be safe." Qin Yu found the crux of the matter. What is enough external strength? Solitary Westgate said in a low voice, "Above Calamity Immortal is the source of the Great Tao. This level should be called the Great Tao Realm. If you can reach the Great Tao, then you can help Xin Yuanin release the shackles of the Sublime Lost Emotion Code. At that time, his wife and child would truly be able to return from the dead. In this world, there was no such thing as giving without reason. If Solitary Westgate went to such great lengths to help Qin Yu, then he naturally had a request. This bit of selfishness was natural. Great Tao Realm! Great Tao Realm! Qin Yu's eyes grew increasingly bright, but at this time his body trembled and all the blood drained from his face. His field of vision darkened and his consciousness fell into darkness. It was like he had experienced a long, long nightmare. When Qin Yu regained consciousness, he could still feel the coldness and terror of the dream. He tried to stand up, but just as he moved, Qin Yu stuffily coughed and nearly fainted once more. Solitary Westgate's voice sounded out. At first it was illusory and far away, but as time passed, it gradually became clear. The netherworld lotus in your soul has already bloomed. I am beginning to wonder whether or not my initial judgment was wrong. The Tao Arena Master had a complex expression. She really does want to kill you. Qin Yu's lips moved. That isn't her. Solitary Westgate shook his head. Qin Yu, listen to me carefully. I have already informed the demonic path to come and pick you up. After you return to the demonic path's Holy Land Small World, immediately mobilize the strength of the Holy Emperor Palace and try to pull out the netherworld lotus. Otherwise, you really will die. The demonic path cultivators arrived faster than Qin Yu imagined. 6 elders from the Holy Emperor Palace, Blue Sky Yellow Springs, and Eternal Darkness Demonic Region used ultra-long-distance transmission arrays to directly arrive at Four Seasons City. The 6 great elders could even put up a fight against the supremes of the world. The Tao Arena Master didn't appear. When the demonic path troops left in a hurry, he walked out from nothingness with a worried expression. The netherworld lotus was 9 heaven mirror moon palaces, most terrifying supernatural power. Once one touched it, they would die. Even he didn't dare to touch it. Qin Yu, you cannot die. After returning to the demonic path Holy Land Small World, Qin Yu directly moved into the Holy Emperor Palace. He dismissed everyone and immediately went into seclusion. Although he didn't know what the netherworld lotus was, Qin Yu naturally wouldn't underestimate it if it could cause the Tao Arena Master to be so worried. But reality proved that he had underestimated just how terrifying the netherworld lotus was. The Holy Emperor Palace was known as the #1 supreme treasure in the world, and its might was unparalleled. By borrowing its strength, it was more than enough to destroy the netherworld lotus. But this blooming netherworld lotus had already fused together with his soul. Destroying it also meant the death of Qin Yu's soul. This was an unsolvable problem. Qin Yu tried all sorts of methods to separate the netherworld lotus, but all of them ended in failure. A month later, he had no choice but to leave seclusion. The safety of the demonic path's holy sovereign concerned the entire demonic path. There was naturally no way to conceal Qin Yu's injuries. The high-level cultivators of the demonic path soon learned that Qin Yu had been struck by the netherworld lotus. After confirming this over and over again, the high-level figures of the demonic path were left in an uproar. As the mortal enemies of the immortal sect, they were well aware of just how terrifying the netherworld lotus was. Once a soul was implanted within, once the flower bloomed, there would be no chance of survival. Perhaps some people were still dissatisfied with Qin Yu, but since he was now the holy sovereign, he represented the dignity of the entire demonic path. If he died, the entire demonic path would be shamed. On one hand, the countless tentacles of the entire demonic path system were activated, all of them searching for a way to save the holy sovereign. On the other hand, the demonic path's originally reserved offensive strategy was completely overturned. They launched an unprecedented slaughter with the immortal sect. Some small countries controlled by both sides had already started a war. The degree of terror reached a point where over 1 million people died in a single day. Chapter 618. Qin Yu sat in the grand hall, coughing from time to time. His face was abnormally red. Yu Qi nervously looked at him, her beautiful eyes filled with anxiety and panic. She couldn't imagine what would happen to her if Qin Yu died. Perhaps she would go crazy. Some feelings were like seeds that were sealed in dust. If there was no chance, they would never germinate. But when Yu Qi entered the sealed Holy Emperor Palace in the past, she had to withstand endless fear and suppression. In her most desperate moment, Qin Yu had appeared in front of her, and he had been so bright and resplendent. As the demonic path saint son, his status was incomparably revered. Like this, the seed buried in her heart quietly sprouted. In normal situations, Yu Qi wouldn't reveal this, because she was well aware of Qin Yu's feelings towards Ningling. But her experiences in the immortal sect world had caused her to let go of all shackles. She hoped that she could hold this man in her arms and heal the wounds he suffered. Sensing Yu Chi's gaze, Qin Yu turned around and smiled. "Don't worry, nothing will happen to me." Yu Chi nodded, suppressing the sourness in her eyes. "I know. Your Majesty, you can rest in peace and recover. Everything will be fine." She had already investigated countless times about the Netherworld Lotus. She knew what this meant, but she was still willing to believe in miracles. This was because for Qin Yu to reach this point was a legend in itself. He would definitely be able to live on. But the reality was that even with the suppression of the Holy Emperor Palace, the Netherworld Lotus was still constantly absorbing soul strength to grow. Moreover, as it grew, it became increasingly strong, and the speed at which it absorbed soul strength increased. Qin Yu knew that he had to respond as soon as possible. The longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Finally, after gathering the wisdom of the entire demonic path, they found a solution. The demon envoy placed the stone statue on the table. It was a palm-sized abyssal with crimson eyes and 2 long fangs sticking out of its mouth. "Your Majesty, this abyssal statue comes from the demon world. Sealed within is the soul mark left behind by a powerful abyssal that died. If you refine this abyssal statue and borrow this abyssal soul mark, you might be able to suppress the Netherworld Lotus. But there are great hidden dangers in this method. The abyssal soul mark has a formidable invasion and backlash attribute. Once you refine it, it will appear on your soul. At that time, you will be seized by the abyssal soul mark. If you cannot resist it." He didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear. Qin Yu nodded. "I understand. Prepare the ceremony. I will refine the stone statue." The demon attendant took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, I wish you all the best." Although there were risks, it was impossible for him to stop them. This was the only way for Qin Yu to survive. Qin Yu took out a travel jade slip and transmitted the countermeasures the demonic path had come up with to the Dao Arena Master. Solitary Westgate quickly responded. This method might work, but the demon mark is extremely terrifying. If one doesn't have a firm will, it will be difficult to escape the fate of being possessed. Qin Yu replied, "I have no other choice, but I believe that I can do it." Knowing that His Majesty the Saint Sovereign's condition wasn't good, the demonic path began to rapidly work. The ritual needed to refine the stone statue was completed in the shortest possible time. 2 days later, the testing ceremony continued as normal. Qin Yu stepped into the array diagram that was covered in blood. Zhang Xian sat down cross-legged, and the demon statue floated up on its own. The formation had been activated, and the temperature of the blood that he infused into it began to rise. The smell of blood suddenly increased between his nose and mouth. Strands of blood mist rose up and were quickly absorbed by the demon statue. The eyes of the stone statue became redder and redder, turning into a glaring blood-red color as if they were about to flow out. Hum! Hum! A light tremble spread out. Cracks appeared on the surface of the stone statue. With a sharp howl, it loudly exploded into pieces. In the next moment, a blood-red light flew out, sinking into the point between Qin Yu's eyebrows. Within his soul space, Qin Yu's soul fiercely opened its eyes. His face twitched in pain. Between his eyebrows, his soul seemed to be corroded. It caved in, forming the clear face of a demon. It opened its mouth as if it were wildly laughing, celebrating that it had regained its freedom and obtained such a wonderful soul. The backlash of the demon mark immediately erupted. Within the array diagram, Qin Yu roared out loud like a wounded beast. All the blood in his body flowed backwards. His heart wildly beat at an extreme speed, as if it would explode at any moment. Beneath his neck, blue veins stuck out. Qin Yu thrust his hands into the array diagram. With a deep roar, countless cracks rapidly spread outwards. After a long time, Qin Yu let out a long breath. His tense body relaxed, and his robes were soaked with sweat. In this short period of time, it was like he had experienced a mountain of blades and a sea of fire. He finally understood just how terrifying the demon mark was. Just now, his mind had been bombarded by tempestuous waves. Every time, it was difficult for him to resist. Even the slightest bit of relaxation would have caused him to completely collapse. He closed his eyes. After a long time, he opened them again. His eyes were filled with exhaustion, but there was joy in their depths. The growth of the nether lotus was being suppressed. After resting for a while more, Qin Yu stood up and left the chamber. The demon attendant and the others outside were overjoyed after sensing it. "Congratulations on successfully refining it, Your Majesty." Qin Yu directly said, "The backlash of the demon mark is extremely terrifying. I don't know how long I can last, but no matter what, I must thank you all. Now I have a question. How long do I need to persevere before I can fuse the demon imprint with another lotus?" That's right, the ultimate result of this plan was for Qin Yu to absorb both at the same time. If he could really do it, then the calamity before him would become a great fortune. The demon envoy's face stiffened. After several breaths of silence, he said, "Your Majesty, you will need to persist for at least 10 years. For tribulation transcenders, 10 years was nothing more than a snap of the fingers. But during these 10 years, he could suffer a backlash from the fiend mark at any time. Since ancient times, the demonic path had obtained far more than just a single demon mark. To a certain degree, the so-called demon mark was a seed that contained the strength of a formidable demon soul. When a new soul was injected into it, the demon mark would be activated and it would seize the consciousness of the soul's original owner, finally obtaining a new life. But from another perspective, the demon mark was also a great supplement. As long as one could refine and absorb it, they could take it for their own use. In the history of the demonic path, there had been more than 1 or 2 formidable characters that had attempted to refine the demon mark, but in the end they had all failed. In the ancient texts of the demonic path, there were detailed records of the demon mark. As the soul fusion increased, the strength of the backlash would also become stronger until it replaced the original owner's consciousness. Qin Yu slowly nodded. Billowing heat surged in his chest. He still had to reach the great Tao realm. Of course, he had to survive. The second demon mark backlash occurred on the 10th day after he refined it. The third time was on the 21st day. The fourth time was on the 30th day. The fifth time was on the 42nd day. Each backlash was stronger than the last. Qin Yu forcefully withstood it. He carefully calculated in his mind and finally obtained an approximate pattern. Every 10 days or so, the demon mark would erupt with a backlash. During this period of time, there wouldn't be too many problems. As long as he was careful, he could carry out his plan. Qin Yu didn't plan on staying in the demonic path's holy land for these 10 years. Only in a difficult environment, experiencing pursuit and slaughter, would he be able to temper his will and face the increasingly powerful backlash of the demon mark. The demon envoy hurried over, sweat dripping down his forehead. He had an anxious expression. "Your Majesty, what is the matter?" Qin Yu shook his head. "I'm fine." He paused for a moment and then said, "During this period of time, I'll have to trouble you with some matters." The demon envoy was startled. He could feel the warmth in Qin Yu's words. His lips moved, but in the end he shook his head. "Sharing your Majesty's worries is my duty." Qin Yu smiled. "The reason I called you here today is because I will be leaving the demonic path for some time." The demon envoy's complexion changed. "Your Majesty, you mustn't. The land of divinity and demons is in turmoil right now, and your Majesty has yet to restore your strength. It is not wise for you to take risks." After refining the demon mark and sealing away the nether lotus, Qin Yu's soul also had a majority of its strength imprisoned. Qin Yu shook his head. "I have already figured out the pattern of the demon mark's backlash. As long as I am careful, there won't be any problems. Seeing the demon envoy about to speak again, Chinyu waved his hand to interrupt him. Enough. I understand your intentions, but I haven't even been able to last half a year. Although I'm fine right now, the backlash is becoming increasingly strong. Only by constantly tempering my will can I withstand it. The demon envoy's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. Your Majesty already has a plan? Chinyu said yes. I am preparing to personally pursue the 4 people who laid down the immortal executing sword array outside G City. The demon envoy subconsciously wanted to refuse. Woodchopper Fu and the other 3 old ghosts had committed all sorts of atrocities in order to survive for so many years. For them to live until now, they were all incomparably strong. Qin Yu's soul force had been greatly reduced. Because of this, his connection with the Holy Emperor Palace had become intermittent. It would be extremely dangerous to pursue them. But the premise of doing this was to temper his will in the midst of dangerous slaughter. If there was no danger, then there was no meaning to it. Your Majesty, I only have a single condition. Have Yu Qi go with you. The next day, a remote transmission gate opened. 2 demonic path cultivators, one tall and one short, stepped in and vanished from sight. This sort of small transmission gate was used hundreds to thousands of times a day in the entire demonic path's holy land. No one knew that from this day onwards, the rumor that the demonic path's holy sovereign, who was severely wounded and struggling on the verge of death, had quietly entered the land of divinity and demons. Amidst the turmoil and chaos, he had begun a long and difficult hunt. His first target was Fanbuyu, Wei Empire, subordinate Jade Cloud Kingdom, in the great eastern city of Vast Sunday. Within the city lord mansion, there was a taciturn old steward. He had served 3 generations of the city lord. Thus, he was highly trusted and had an extremely high status in the mansion. This old steward was a kind and amiable person. He didn't covet wealth or power, and he greeted everyone with a smile. His only flaw was that he was lustful. Even at his old age, he was still incomparably interested in women. Every year, he would take in several beautiful concubines. Not just that, but this old steward was like a treasured saber that never grew old. He gave birth to children one after another, but it was unknown whether it was because he was too old or because these children were born with congenital deficiencies, but none of them were able to stand up. Most of them died before they were 3 years old. Some people felt pity for them, and some people gloated over their misfortune. On this day, a young couple arrived outside Vast Sun City. The man wore blue and white robes, and his face was young. Beneath his hat, there was a bit of frost in his hair. The woman beside him wore a veil that covered her face. Even so, one could still clearly feel the elegance that flowed out from her. Standing outside the city, the woman turned and looked up, her questioning eyes falling on his face. Chapter 619. Clear Yang City, Lord's surname was Su. His father and older brother had died one after the other in the early years. Without much effort, he inherited the position of city lord. Without any pressure, he began to indulge in enjoyment. He had many wives and many children. Many people felt that the gentle and amiable old butler had become like this because of the city lord's influence. Without the city lord's father's luck, many of the younger generation of the Su family who had the qualifications to covet the position would fight openly and covertly, hoping that all their opponents would die. Every year there would be a few disturbances, and small conflicts could be found everywhere. The elders in the mansion were already used to it. The old steward clasped his hands behind his back as he walked along the stone path in the garden. A group of young masters and ladies of the Su family stood opposite him, the atmosphere tense. Seeing him come over, a 13 or 14-year-old girl ran out from the side of the team. She had a sweet appearance and pouted her small lips. Grandpa Steward, 23rd brother, and the others are bullying me again. You have seen it for yourself today. You must give me justice. Everyone was aware of the old steward's status in the manor. The younger generation of the Sioux family fawned over him. The old steward smiled. Be obedient. Grandpa has important matters to attend to. I don't have time to play around with you. Hurry back to the courtyard. The girl hugged her arm and wriggled back and forth like a spoiled child. No, no, no. You have to say something for me this time. The old housekeeper sighed helplessly. With a gentle expression, he raised his hand and stroked her head. I have already said that I have serious matters to attend to. Why are you so disobedient? Puff. Like a ripe watermelon, his head was smashed to pieces and red and white matter splattered everywhere. The old steward walked to the side of a Sioux family junior that had been scared silly. He wiped the blood off his hands and patted his shoulder. Be obedient and leave. He turned around and continued to walk out. Ah! Screams of terror rang out behind him. Amidst the chaos, the old steward walked out of the main gate of the city lord's residence. Looking at the end of the long street where people were coming and going, he muttered, Isn't it good for everyone to be quiet? A man and a woman appeared at the end of his line of sight. The old butler frowned. This man seemed somewhat familiar. The woman stopped, turned around, and retreated to some unknown place. The man came alone. His steps weren't fast, but he arrived in front of her in a few breaths of time. Fan Buyu. It was a straightforward statement with no intention of questioning. The old butler raised an eyebrow. I haven't heard this name in a long time. Actually, I have many things to say. Not speaking is just one of them. Thus, this is merely a method that this old man uses to conceal his identity. His lips curved up in a smile. I don't know who you are, nor do I have any interest in knowing. That's because those who have found me over the years have all died. Really? The man adjusted his hat and raised his head to reveal his face. I'm looking forward to it. Fan Buyu's pupils shrank, Demon Emperor. With a strange cry, he turned around and left. He did not have the courage to fight at all. What kind of **T injury is that? What a bunch of **King liars. Even if the Demon Emperor was really injured, Fan Buyu had no doubt that the Demon Emperor had the absolute strength to kill him. Dong! The void rumbled and the air rippled. Fan Buyu's vision darkened as if he had run into a mountain. Space-time lock. This was a great treasure of the demonic path's Holy Emperor Palace. It was rumored that it came from an unknown land. After activating it, it could seal off a small world. Or, to be more precise, it could instantly duplicate an identical world. Unless the person who activated the space-time lock was killed, one would never be able to leave this place. Space ripples spread out in all directions. All the pedestrians on the streets shattered like bubbles. In the blink of an eye, the entire city was left with only Qin Yu and Fan Buyu. The space-time lock had duplicated the entire Vastjong city. Demon Emperor, I admit that I shouldn't have been possessed and arranged a trap to kill you outside G City. I can give you sufficient compensation. Fan Buyu said in a deep voice. Qin Yu shook his head. You and I both know that such words are meaningless. Why waste time? He paused for a moment, then continued. But I can tell you that the rumors that I'm seriously injured are true. Otherwise, if I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't need to use the space-time lock. Fan Buyu's eyes brightened. His intuition told him that Qin Yu wasn't lying, and there was no need for him to lie to him. Since the Demon Emperor hasn't recovered from his injuries, why did you come looking for me? Qin Yu said in an indifferent tone, when I encounter a difficult situation, I might be able to overcome it by sharpening myself. You are the first whetstone that I've chosen. Fan Buyu roared. If that's the case, then I'll have to offend you. If I'm lucky enough to kill the Demon Emperor, I'll be eternally grateful. With the severely injured Demon Emperor, he might still have a chance. If he could succeed, he would be able to obtain the sacrificial item needed to complete the ritual, and all of it would belong to him alone. This almost meant that he would definitely be able to break through the shackles and transcend life and death. With a step forward, Fan Buyu's aura changed dramatically. There was no longer any trace of fear or uneasiness. Instead, his eyes were filled with a fanatical gleam. They had struggled to survive until today. It wasn't wrong to say that they were as timid as mice, afraid to face death. But at the same time, in order to survive, Fan Buyu and the others had also paid a great price. This tenacity and perseverance, after a long period of time, had even surpassed the fear of death, turning into a powerful obsession. And today, this obsession of Fan Buyu's had been completely activated by Qinyu. A strange black lotus flower appeared. Its petals opened one by one, revealing the scarlet stamens within. They were as delicate as the waists of beautiful women. But if one looked carefully, they would discover that each stamen had a twisted face on it. They were howling in pain, but no sound came out, as if they were imprisoned in a prison. When they saw Fan Buyu, their faces were filled with fear, but their eyes were filled with hatred. I have lived for 60 million years. I have witnessed the changes of time, the rise of countless proud sons of heaven, and the fall of thousands of peerless masters. Wandering through the endless river of time, I have captured these people and used them as my source of life to continue living. I hope that after today, Your Majesty the Demon Emperor will be able to enter and become the core of my source of life. Now, I ask that the fellow Taoist I am most grateful to extend the most sincere invitation to the Demon Emperor. With a flick of his sleeves, the black lotus flower gently trembled. The soft stamens inside began to wriggle as if they were alive. Those pained faces opened their mouths and began to howl in unison. This painful howl still didn't emit any sound, but it set off raging waves in Qin Yu's mind. It was like someone had picked up a dozen rough wooden nails and ruthlessly smashed them into his head. The instant pain was enough to cause his consciousness to collapse. At the same time, Fan Buyu approached Qin Yu. He lifted a hand and slammed it down. Qin Yu's complexion paled and his eyes darkened, but in the next moment they brightened like two masses of blazing flames. He was truly worthy of being called one of the longest living people in the world. His methods were truly unfathomable. At the very least, this soul attack technique was terrifying enough. Chapter 620. Bang! Space twisted. Ripples spread outwards. The world replicated by the space-time lock turned into a piece of paper that was bent. The streets, houses, and trees on the paper were like bubbles that had been poked, bursting apart and dissipating. Qin Yu was at the center of these fluctuations. The power that distorted space crazily tore at his body. The heart in his chest was crazily beating, causing his blood to quickly rise in temperature. His body surged with extreme speed, rumbling like a great river flowing east, completely activating the power of his flesh. His bones emitted explosive crackling sounds. Qin Yu's body suddenly grew. Blood vessels bulged beneath his skin, and his aura skyrocketed. Holy! Strictly speaking, the demon body had already surpassed the limits of body transformation. It had tempered the mortal body into an incomparably powerful treasure. This treasure could communicate with the outside world, becoming one with the world. Every movement it made could move the rules of the world and erupt with a terrifying strength. In order to seal away the demon mark, Qin Yu's soul had been damaged and his strength had been greatly reduced. The reason he dared to chase down Fan Buyu and the others was because the demon body was his greatest reliance. Otherwise, this wouldn't be tempering himself, but seeking death. Alive, this was an old monster that lived for tens of millions of years. No matter what trump card he used, if he wasn't careful, he would suffer a backlash. One he punched out. The world thundered. Endless strength gushed out from the void, gathering into his fist and erupting in an instant. Fan Buyu's expression was solemn, no joy or sorrow in his eyes. Because he feared death and had an obsession in his heart, in this great life or death danger, he was able to erupt with everything he had. At this time, his mind, his eyes, and even his senses, all of them were focused on Qin Yu. There was no room for anything else. Everything he did, there was only one goal: to kill Qin Yu. The vast strength of the world rushed towards him. Fan Buyu's palm trembled, and the bones in half his body emitted cracking sounds. But these sounds didn't mean that the bones in his body couldn't withstand the strength. Rather, they were transforming, accumulating, erupting. Fan Buyu roared out loud. His palm suddenly swelled up, and the skin on it cracked apart. Traces of blood appeared as it was instantly shattered into a fog of blood. Qin Yu frowned. He took back his fist and crossed his arm in front of him. At this moment, he seemed to turn into a towering mountain. Dong! A deep sound penetrated into the depths of the soul. A terrifying strength tumbled outwards, spreading outwards at an astonishing speed. Blink in the blink of an eye, half of Clear Sun City, which was replicated by the space-time lock, was crushed and smashed into pieces. Countless layers of space folded. Qin Yu flew backwards, his body piercing through the city. His face was pale and he violently coughed. Scarlet blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, dripping onto the ground before shattering into countless pieces. The wind brought with it the smell of blood. Fan Buyu closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He muttered, "Your Majesty, are you really injured?" Cough, cough. Qin Yu took several deep breaths. "Since I said it, it is naturally true." Speechless nodded. "Your Majesty has gained credibility in this old man's heart. Thank you very much for bringing me this news." Qin Yu shook his head. "I won't be killed so easily." Fan Buyu smiled. "The purpose of a whetstone is to make a blade sharper, but if it's too hard, it can also break a blade. I am untalented, but today I am willing to make a vow to the heavens and earth to become such a stone to end His Majesty the Demon Sovereign's vitality and extend my life." He raised his hands, his 10 fingers spread open as if he were embracing the entire world. Deep and low syllables echoed out from his mouth. "Soul prisoners, offer His Majesty the Demon Sovereign's soul to me, and you will obtain your freedom. This is my promise to you." Within the black lotus flower, the faces that formed the delicate stamens of the flower widened their eyes, filled with a desire for freedom and liberation. Bang! Black! The black lotus flower exploded. Countless masses of black energy flew out, each one a soul imprisoned within. They howled as they stubbornly stared at Qin Yu. Fan's speechless promise to them was a kind of contract. Once it appeared in the world, it could no longer be changed. This was their only chance to escape the purgatory and welcome their final rest. For this, these soul prisoners would do anything. Masses of black energy exploded, interweaving together to form a giant curtain of darkness that covered the sky above. It was as if the world had fallen into eternal darkness. Fan Buyu straightened his back, and a powerful aura broke out from his body. At this moment, there was no longer any old and decaying aura around him. He was like a spear pointing towards the heavens, overbearing, powerful, and courageous, exploding the black lotus, releasing all the soul prisoners, cutting off any chance of survival, placing himself in a hopeless situation. He could no longer turn back. To some extent, this was a game of killing himself first and then killing others. Victory would defy the heavens and change fate. Defeat would mean death. Dang! However, Fan Buyu's decisiveness was because he didn't want to delay for too long in order to avoid complications. Indeed, the demon sovereign's injury was real. This was the best opportunity for him to act without hesitation. Black. The world beneath the curtain was completely isolated from the outside world. A cold and despairing aura submerged Qin Yu. He could feel his soul weakening and withering like a flower in the winter, closer and closer to death. He could hear the laughter of the demon mark in his ears. It was waiting for Qin Yu's consciousness to collapse and his soul to die. At that time, it could break free and use his mortal body as a breeding ground to be reborn. Qin Yu wasn't unfamiliar with the taste of death, but every time he approached it, there would be a different taste. He closed his eyes and his lips moved. I won't die. I won't die. This was a psychological suggestion he gave himself and also the strongest declaration he could make to the world. Clear Yong City, outside the City Lord Mansion, the streets were filled with people, none of them aware that a peak battle was occurring right beside them. If the fluctuations of this battle leaked out, it would be enough to cause the entire city and all living beings to face a calamity. Yu Qi stood behind the canvas, her fingers tightly twisted together. In her line of sight, Qin Yu's figure had already vanished for 10 breaths of time. The flow of time in this world was different from the outside world. If Qin Yu's judgment wasn't wrong, then the battle would end in 15 breaths of time. Otherwise, according to the agreement, she would have to immediately leave Clear Yong City. 10 1 breath, 12 breaths, 13 breaths. Yu Qi's face rapidly paled beneath her veil. Her eyes filled with anxiety. Qin Yu, hurry up and come out. You can do it. You can definitely do it. 14 breaths, 15 breaths. No, a miracle occurred. The Qin Yu who had vanished from the streets didn't emerge from nothingness. Yu Qi's legs weakened. She grabbed onto the canvas to prevent herself from falling. She covered her mouth, tears blurring her vision. Miss, are you all right? The stall owner had already noticed this beautiful woman. He hurriedly stood up, his face full of concern. At the same time, an inexplicable anger rose in his heart. Just what sort of person could cause such a beautiful woman to be so sad? This person had gone too far. Yu Qi blankly shook her head. She turned and walked away, but after taking a single step, she couldn't move any further. She suddenly realized that if Qin Yu couldn't return, why would she leave? She had already prepared herself to live and die with him. She turned and walked towards the City Lord Mansion. The so-called live and die together was naturally to live together and die together. Stand in the place where Qin Yu vanished. Yu Qi took a deep breath. Her eyes were deathly still, like an ice flower without the least bit of life. At this moment, the world in front of her suddenly trembled, and the scene overlapped. A figure walked out from the overlapping images and stuck close to her. A familiar aura instantly filled her nose and mouth. Yu Qi froze for a second and then desperately hugged him. A man's voice sounded out from above her. I'm sorry, there was a mistake in my calculations. I overestimated myself. Yu Qi desperately shook her head. She couldn't care about anything else right now. All she wanted to do was confirm that this man in front of her truly existed. He was alive. He was alive. I'm afraid I will need to find a place to go into seclusion immediately. Qin Yu's voice became weak. Yu Qi fiercely looked up. What she saw was his pale and tired face. She suddenly blamed herself. She was really stupid. She should have thought of this earlier, so how could she have delayed his time? Let's go now. If you're tired, lean on me and rest. Qin Yu smiled and nodded. He reached out and held onto her. Their bodies pressed together. Soon, Yu Qi discovered that his arms were gradually loosening and his eyes were closed, falling into a deep sleep. Sniff. Sniffling, Yu Qi supported him, and they vanished from the streets of Clear Yong City. Night. Yu Qi looked at the sleeping Qin Yu, her fingers tightly clasped together. She looked at Qin Yu's furrowed eyebrows and didn't dare to close her eyes. The backlash of the demon mark had erupted. She could clearly feel the two consciousnesses struggling within Qin Yu's body. After an unknown period of time, Qin Yu's tense body slowly relaxed. Yu Qi let out a long breath and discovered that her clothes were soaked with sweat. Tired, exhaustion washed over her like a tide. After carefully inspecting Qin Yu and determining that there was nothing wrong with him, she fell asleep in several breaths of time. These several hours were no less than the cruelest torture for Yu Qi. She watched helplessly as Qin Yu struggled between life and death, unable to do anything. When Qin Yu woke up, the first thing he saw was her thin face. Ever since she learned of his true situation, Yu Qi hadn't been able to relax for even a moment. Shame, guilt rose from the depths of his heart. He looked at the woman in front of him, unsure how he could repay her silent sacrifice. Eyes in a trance, Yuchi's eyelashes moved and her eyes slowly opened. Their gazes met and a brilliant smile bloomed on her face. At this moment, Chin-yu couldn't help but admit that he was moved by this smile. After a moment of hesitation, he took the initiative to grab her hand. Yuchi, thank you. Looking at her hand that was grabbed by Chin-yu, Yuchi's smile became even brighter. She forcefully grasped his hand, silently telling herself that since she had caught him today, she wouldn't let him go for the rest of her life. At almost the same time, on a distant island in the southern tip of the Great Chu, Old Bastard opened his eyes, his complexion pale. Now he was sure that Fan Buyu's aura had truly vanished. Old Bastard was well aware of what this meant. After a long period of silence, he finally couldn't suppress the tumbling in his chest. He clenched his teeth and roared, "You bastard!" He fiercely stood up and flicked his sleeves. A wild strength erupted, crushing everything in front of him and erasing all traces. Old the Ghost head shot into the skies. Space twisted and swallowed up his figure. No one knew that a long, long time ago, Fan Buyu had become a path of retreat that he had prepared for himself. But now this path of retreat had been sealed off. If someone could kill Fan Buyu, then it wouldn't be difficult to kill him. Thus, his current path of retreat wasn't a path filled with anger and rage, but a path towards the west. Him.